He was blessed with a special gift from God. He wasn't a fighter or a wizard, he just didn't fit into either world. And I'm not even someone who can heal others. Hearing the strong order to take action, Rent quickly nodded, held the piggy bank firmly, gave it a gentle shake, and got ready to make his move. The man's serious face showed he was ready for anything. Confident, he used his borrowed magic. Suddenly, a bright light surrounded him, making him stand out. The piggy bank's eyes suddenly started to glow, and something that looked a lot like money shot out of its slot so fast that it could actually scratch you. Rent held the piggy bank tightly, even as money shot out of it super fast, flying everywhere and covering everything nearby in cash. The girl wearing the witch's hat will forgive the guy for rushing, as the trio battling the monster can't keep up anymore. They really need Rent's magic's help right now. The paper money quickly rushed toward the man holding the big sword, heading straight for his back. It looked like they were going to strike him, but instead they were there to help, giving him new energy and power. They enjoyed their time together, really connected with him, and he let out a big, happy sigh. Suddenly, the knight gripped his sword even tighter and shouted, daring the monsters to come at him. You could see fresh determination in his eyes. He truly believed he was going to win. Using all his magic, he put everything he had into a powerful final attack. A massive explosion surrounded the monster, giving it no chance to escape. Rent nearly lost his balance when a powerful gust of wind hit him. He squeezed his eyes shut to protect them, but then a huge explosion sent everyone flying. Dust and sand filled the air, getting into his eyes and making it hard to see. Guy kept standing there after his incredible win, breathing hard and trying to calm down. He realized he had actually done it. Holding his sword tight, he stood in the dust left by the blast. El, the lead healer, smiled and said the night was amazing. Guy, the top warrior, grinned and laughed a little, feeling proud. Missy, the senior mage, said that winning this time would be simple for them. Rent sat on the ground and looked at the heroes with a big smile. For him, winning with just one hit was amazing. He felt on top of the world. The piggy bank rested on his knee, while the dust from the blast slowly faded away. The company recommends staying on this path to reach your goal. Rent's job title is announced. The Keeper of Magic is like the guardian of all things mysterious and powerful. They protect ancient secrets, watch over magical worlds, and make sure magic is used for good. With wisdom and a kind heart, they guide others and keep the balance between wonder and danger. 5 years ago, the village of Alt was a quiet, forgotten place. Little Guy beams with pride, holds up his paper, and announces loudly that he's a swordsman, a super cool job. The people standing beside him cheer him on, saying it's awesome and mentioning that he's already a D-rank adventurer. He smiles proudly and says he always dreamed of becoming an adventurer, and now he finally made it. Goro stood beside him, showed off his leaf, and proudly mentioned he was a blacksmith. Guy smiled, saying that was pretty awesome too, and added that it was also an E-rank job. The boy said he would use a weapon he made himself to fight, and the young blacksmith answered sadly that he, too, wished he could go on his own adventure. In this world, when you turn 15, you can get a special gift from God during a coming-of-age ceremony. Little Rent smiles, dreaming about how strong he'll become on his adventures. Suddenly, a young girl shows up and calls out to the guy, trying to get his attention. Rent was happy to run into his friend Missy, who told him that his name was mentioned in church. The church felt mysterious and exciting, with big doors, tall columns, and people holding tree branches. It was unusual and could amaze you, but also make you feel uneasy. Rent glanced around and quickly noticed that everything here felt completely unfamiliar to him. He walked up to the man, who welcomed him warmly with a gentle smile. The man spoke to him kindly, almost like a caring priest. The man gave him a piece of parchment and asked him to pray in front of the altar's light. He said that soon, the Creator would show him the secret of his whole future. Standing in front of tall stained glass windows decorated with angels, Rent pressed the parchment to his forehead and quietly prayed, hoping to discover his true purpose. A group of teenagers gathered by the church entrance, some chatting with friends, while others waited for their chance to go inside. Rent walked out of the church. Missy smiled when she saw him and asked if everything was done. The others were excited to see him and curious about how things went. They couldn't wait to find out which part he got. Rent nervously scratched his head and held up his paper, showing that he had been given the role of Guardian of Magic. He explained that even the Holy Father was surprised, and apparently he had an S rank, which left everyone around him in shock. Guy was really shocked to see such a high rank. He mentioned that it almost never happens. Soon, a crowd formed behind him because everyone was eager to get a look at Ren's leaf too. The man took a closer look and realized that Rent was actually in charge of all the magic. Suddenly, he looked down and stopped talking. In his mind, he was shocked and shouted that the guy's magic power was an incredible 1,200 units. Guy yelled in surprise, saying this was impossible since his magic level was only 20. The girl beside him calmly replied that her magic level was just 13. The man started trembling and nervously asked what his special skill was. Rent walked over as well, curious to see for himself. He said his special skill was sharing magic, but the people around him didn't quite get what he meant at first. Ren explained that the ability was probably about passing on magic powers to other people. Guy quickly asked if he could really take someone's magic and use it freely. Missy snuck up behind him and laughed, saying it was funny how he got scared because she surprised him out of nowhere. She says it's a fantastic gift, and since it's S rank, Rent wants to know if she truly means it. Mrs. gave a warm smile and sincerely congratulated the man. The guy gave a shy smile and said thanks to the girl, honestly. Borrowing from a magic keeper is just one skill. It basically means you can hold a bit more magic energy than usual. Basically, it means how much energy you use when you perform a skill. When you rest or sleep, your magic power naturally comes back, but there's a maximum amount you can hold, and you can't go above that limit, no matter how much you rest. But he can save the extra in his magical storage. It can hold up to 2,400 units, which is the highest amount of magic power it can store. Rentley lay on his bed, gazing at the ceiling and wondering if he'd ever get a chance to use his talents. He suddenly understands that no one ever showed him how to do this. But then he remembers someone once told him that the real secret to magic is all about how you present yourself. He looks over at the shelf, where there's a simple little piggy bank sitting quietly. That's his old piggy bank. He picked it up, curious to see if it could help him use his new powers. Rent glances at the piggy bank and figures he can probably save up magic inside it, just like you de-store coins. Suddenly, the piggy bank started to glow with a magical light, and the guy finally understood that it truly was a real piggy bank. He says this piggy bank isn't for small change, it's for collecting magic. Suddenly, he announced he would put it in his piggy bank. Like magic, paper money started flying right into the piggy bank. Someone was showing off their magic skills by tossing a fireball on the street. Rent quietly reached Mesa from behind and used borrowed magic, catching her completely off guard. She started to feel stronger again and happily told the guy that her magic was back. The man walked up to the girl and told her that if she wanted to get her strength back, she should place her hand on the piggy bank and let her energy flow into it. Missy did exactly what she was told. She placed her hand on the piggy bank, and suddenly it started to shine with a magical glow. Rent smiled and said she was doing everything perfectly. Guy walked over, saw the piggy bank, and laughed as he picked it up. He asked Rent what it was. Rent grinned and said it was pretty clear. It was his best idea for a vault. Missy quickly turns toward the guy, hoping to catch his eye. She moved a little closer and asked the boy if he'd like to join them on an adventure. The girl said they were going to sign up a team for the guild, her, a guy, and someone named Rent, and after that they'd look for more people to join. The man was really surprised and looked at them, hoping they were being serious. The guy standing close put his arm around Rent's shoulders and joked that now they'd have no more trouble with magic. Rent shook his head and explained he couldn't just use magic whenever he wanted. If he borrowed some, he'd eventually have to give it back. The guy nodded, showing he understood. Mrs. smiled and said that Rent always talked about his dream of living an exciting and adventurous life. Rent gave a big smile and replied with a cheerful yes. He asked in a brisk tone if they had picked a name for the group, and Guy replied with confidence that they had already decided on everything. The man lifted his sword high and announced its name, the Sword of the Boundless Sky. He said that one day, this sword would become powerful enough to slice through the sky itself. Missy touched her forehead and asked the guy if he was sure he didn't want to change his mind. Rent moved closer, wanting to admit that he actually thought it was awesome. The guy's smile grew even bigger, but the girl clearly wasn't as impressed. Their teammate Elle is a skilled healer, ready to keep everyone healthy and help the team recover quickly during tough fights. And that's how their exciting journey started. They worked incredibly fast. Rent gave everyone amazing magical powers. The monsters were defeated one by one because everyone worked together, and also, their magical strength depended on how many people were in their team. At a nearby bar, some men were chatting about the famous Sky Boundless Sword Squad. As he sipped his beer, one man became curious about the conversation. The guys were talking about how this squad had started at rank F and climbed all the way up to rank C in just 2 years. They were seriously quick movers. The man was truly fascinated by the endless sky. Guy jokes that after doing such a great job, they should get new outfits for their next adventure. Missy laughs and says she actually feels really comfortable in her current clothes. Elle adds that she's happy too. Rent glanced at his teammates and wondered if they had forgotten him, since he was still wearing the basic gear. The man answered rudely, saying he didn't need a new uniform because he wasn't involved in any actual fighting. Elle suggested washing it, since the guy smelled a bit sour, and after hearing her comments, his face fell and he looked even sadder. Compared to the other three, this one levels up much more slowly, because his ability only works under certain conditions. If you give someone power, remember you can always take it away. But as he tried to get closer to the group and share how their teamwork felt like magic to him, Guy suddenly stopped him, turned around sharply, and looked at him with a serious face. Rent suddenly looked embarrassed and quickly said he didn't mean it like that, he just couldn't find the right words. Back then they talked easily as equals, but now things have changed. The whole team treats each other with respect and leaves old disagreements behind. As you mature, you start to see things from a new perspective, even your own beliefs from the past. Elle bangs her staff on the ground and calls out a spell to boost her magic powers. Suddenly, the monster lunges at Misei, but she reacts fast, dodges the attack, and makes a quick getaway. The girl aims her weapon at him and shouts, calling out a spell that creates a swirling tornado of fire. The fire covered the monster, hiding it from view and slowly burning it away. The guy stomps his foot hard and tightens his jaw, getting ready to face the monster head-on. He swings his sword and creates a powerful blade of air. The giant monster was beat and now lay still in the water, not moving at all. Guy grins and casually tosses his sword onto his shoulder, ranked at BL beams, and jokes that it's just a normal win for them. She's also at rank B. Misei chimes in, saying their opponents were super easy, and she's ranked B as well. Rent stands at the back, clapping for the team with a proud, admiring smile. He's earned an impressive S rank. Guy ignored him, lifted his head with confidence, and said they should head to the guild and report to her. He seemed eager and excited for his evaluation. Mesa asked if they knew people were saying their team was almost as good as an A-rank party. The guy just nodded confidently, and Rent turned around. He noticed a chest hidden among the ruins behind him. He shouted to his team that he'd discovered a treasure chest. Rain was pouring down hard outside, drumming loudly on the rooftops. In a small hotel room, a single candle glowed softly, casting a warm light over the cozy space. Rent sat facing his team, confused and sad, unable to figure out what was going on. He stared at the guy, clearly not buying a single word he said. The guy cut him off and warned him not to make him say it again. Then he told him they had to get all the way to the top. He decided they would find new adventurers and build a brand new squad too. 0. And when he realized Rent wasn't included, his eyes lost all hope, filling with fear and disappointment. Trying to hide his nerves, he hesitantly asked, "Why did you choose me?" He couldn't figure out why everyone on the team started giving him fake smiles and acting like they didn't care about what he said. All three of them suddenly revealed big shiny bracelets on their arms, sparkling in the soft candlelight. Rent was shocked to see them, wearing the bracelets he had discovered in the chest. Guy said they had it checked out at the store, and even the owner was surprised because it turned out to be a really rare item. He also explained that this bracelet can recharge your magic by up to 1,000 points every day. The man realized there were 3 bracelets, which was way more than he could offer. Mesa said they needed some magic, but it didn't have to come from Rent. The guy tried to explain that with these bracelets, he could share over 5,000 magic points. Rent explained that with this method, they could use any kind of magic they wanted, right? Suddenly, Guy stood up from the table. He started explaining that this was exactly why he did it. The man suddenly grabbed the other guy by the neck, lifting him off the ground as he started to struggle to breathe. He gave the guy a serious look and told him, "I'm going to put you to the test. Let's see if you can escape." The rent was so high, he felt trapped. He wanted to leave, but it was impossible for him to do anything about it. Guy stared at him seriously, telling him to stop acting clever since he didn't have that much magic anyway. Rent quietly pleads for a break. He just wants to catch his breath. Right now, he feels totally powerless. His eyes roll back and tears stream down his face, showing he's lost all hope of being freed. He says the pain is unbearable. He looks at Guy, his eyes full of pain, silently begging to be set free. The grip on the man's neck slowly let go. Rent dropped hard to the ground, gasping for air as he tried to steady his breathing. Elle burst out laughing and joked that the guy's face looked really funny. He glared at his old team, breathing hard as he tried to calm himself down. Misei gave him a serious look and asked why he was staring like that. She said she totally agreed with Guy. She snapped, asking if he actually wanted her pity. Rent tried to respond, but no sound came out. His throat tightened with anger and frustration. He was overwhelmed by resentment and couldn't say a word. The man couldn't take it anymore, so he rushed out of the building, feeling angry and upset. Elle waved at him, laughing playfully and grinning, then called out a cheeky goodbye as he walked away. Guy smiled and said that at least one problem was gone, so they wouldn't have to worry about him anymore. Mesa replied that this useless person should have been fired a long time ago. The guy chuckled and agreed, saying the girl really could be a bit harsh. Rent walked slowly through the heavy rain, quickly getting soaked, feeling a tight knot of anger and resentment toward his old team. He remembered Guy's wild grin as he tried to choke him, his hand now clenched tightly into a fist. He couldn't do anything about it. Everyone was amazed when he received his S-rank power because it's really rare and special. Simply stay behind your teammates and share your magic energy with them. The boy couldn't take it anymore, so he tossed the piggy bank off his shoulder. It hit the wet, rainy ground with a loud crash. Rent gazes down sadly, raindrops falling on her head as if the weather shares her feelings. The man said to the emptiness that this was never what he wanted. Thinking back to the faces of the Trinity, he suddenly understood they were actually one and the same. He started to wonder if he just wasn't good enough. Maybe that's the real reason he got kicked out. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he wondered, what if this is actually true? Every bit of magic I can copy now, he once shared with others. He couldn't take it anymore and yelled into the pouring rain, begging to have his strength back. He stood quietly alone in the empty street while rain poured down around him. Suddenly, the guy heard a voice in his head, telling him that he had completed everything needed for his gift to evolve. Rent was shocked, and the voice kept talking. It explained that the storage had turned into endless magical storage. The guy started to wonder where the mysterious voice was coming from. Suddenly, a tiny fairy showed up, calling Rento sir and congratulating him on his heat evolution. Rento was really surprised by this sudden visit. The little fairy smiled and cheerfully congratulated the boy on how much his power had improved, calling him her master. She smiled softly and warmly, telling him how happy she was to meet him. He thought it was the nicest moment he had ever experienced. Suddenly, she walked up and admitted she never thought she'd have to wait a whole 5 years after her master turned 18. Rint's eyes grew big with surprise. He nervously pointed at her and quietly said she. He shouted and asked if she was a heat fairy. The girl grinned and told him he was right. He remembers the village priest once telling him about a fairy who always looks after him and has a special magical power. The story was actually true. The girl smiled shyly and said she was happy to meet you. Her real name is Magical Planner, but you can just call her Mappy. The fairy gave a warm smile and said she was excited to spend more time together and become friends. Red thought she was cute and tried to figure out what to say next. Suddenly, the fairy shouted in shock when she saw the guy. She was surprised by how messy he looked and quickly asked him what happened. At first, he was confused and didn't realize what was going on. Moppy pulled out an old abacus and started making a list. An iron breastplate, a worn-out cloak, cloth pants, and then he suddenly demanded, "What are these sandals supposed to be?" She placed the bills on the counter and said firmly, 116 coins. That's just the right amount to get the guy some decent gear. She also said that if he wants a job, he should dress properly. Rent started thinking that she was a bit strange. The guy asked how his magic gift had changed, and the fairy told him it was time to take a look at the parchment. Muppy explained that whenever a skill gets better, the information on the parchment changes too. Rent examined his parchment carefully and noticed it had changed. Now, his special ability was called Infinite Magic Storage. He remembered how his old friends had improved too, like Guy, who used to be just an average swordsman, but now he had become really skilled. He realized his rank was now SSS and wondered if there was any level above S rank. The fairy just giggled and kept the answer a mystery. She pointed at something and told the guy to check it out. He noticed a strange symbol and asked the fairy what it meant. Moppy told him it was the infinity sign. She grabbed the piggy bank and happily announced that the boy didn't have to worry about how much it could hold anymore, because now it could store endless magic. Rent didn't get what the fairy meant right away and just stood there quietly, staring ahead. In that moment, everything made sense to him, and he finally understood what infinite really means. Moppy started explaining that building endless magic storage needed 2 things. First, the boy had to have enough magical power. The girl brightened up and explained that the second condition was a powerful emotion. He needed to truly wish with all his heart to repay the debt. Rent remembered that he had just let out a loud scream. The girl suddenly said that it was such an easy task and wondered why it took the guy 5 years to finish it. Rent snapped, saying things weren't as simple as they seemed. The fairy just gave him a sly, sarcastic smile. Suddenly, his shoulders dropped, and he said in a much softer voice that he was really scared. The guy started sharing how he was always patient and did his best to help his old team. He always felt that if he asked for the magic to be returned, they'd promise to give it back once things got better for them. Miras smiled and told him he was really kind, which totally surprised him and made him happy, because it had been a long time since anyone praised him. The fairy called him a silly, naive fool with a mocking smile. Rent didn't appreciate the insult and showed that he was annoyed. Moppy gave him a friendly hug and told him it was no big deal, then suggested they go check out what else was happening. The man looked back at the parchment and started searching for any new changes. He was puzzled when he saw the number 2,678,087. It looked so big that he asked the fairy what it actually meant. Matt smiled a little and explained that this was the total magic he had given to the team. Rent was shocked to see such a big number. He didn't expect it at all. The fairy added that this amount was for all 5 years combined. She explained that the number below showed how much magic he had to gather, 1,435,837 units. She said that was about as much as a person could collect in a whole year. This was now his new skill, and he had no choice but to use it. Rant's voice shook as he suddenly understood he could take magic energy from the dead by force. He understood that he could regain all the energy he had shared with others in the past. The fairy gave a gentle smile, seeing the guy was clearly excited by the idea. That's when the guy finally understood what she meant. Why did her face look so harsh and unkind? He suddenly asked Marie in a loud voice how he was supposed to use this power. The fairy gently tried to calm him down. She explained that to start the process, some conditions must be met, such as signing a contract with the debtor. Rent made a mental note of this important detail. Moppy mentioned that there are ways to force magic to return, but they're pretty complicated, even though it's possible if you really think about it. The fairy quickly told the man, "Let me handle this." Rent smiled at the fairy, showing he trusted her completely. The two men walking by glanced at the guy, clearly suspicious of him. Everyone was curious, wondering who the boy was talking to by the tree. Since they couldn't see the fairy, it seemed strange and surprising that he was just chatting with the air. They chose to leave the guy alone, thinking it was the smartest thing to do given what had happened before. The sun is shining again, now that the rain is over. Once again, we see a peaceful hotel, and a man steps outside saying he had a fantastic evening there yesterday. He pushed away all distractions and told the team they should head to the guild to find a new member. But then, something suddenly grabbed his attention. He stood right in front of them, head held high, and the team was totally shocked. They never thought they'd see him here. The man asked in a rude tone why the other guy decided to come back all of a sudden. El smiled, apologized, and reminded everyone that they had already kicked the guy out of the group. The swordsman nodded and said there was no room for him here anymore. Nisa said the guy showed up just in time. She had a bag in her hands and roughly tossed it toward him, so it landed at his feet. Then she told him he could take it. She also mentioned that the innkeeper worked really hard to gather all this stuff. Missy hesitantly admitted they had no idea what to do with it all. Rent quickly pushed the parchment towards them, catching them by surprise. He told the team about all the magical powers they had borrowed and explained what each one could do. At first, the man was confused, but then he asked if they were really prepared to give back everything they had ever taken. The team wasn't happy with the way this was said, so Missy asked what the guy really meant. Rent sharply told them to be quiet. He started to realize that everyone already knows, when you borrow something, you have to give it back. We have to give everything back. The guys look totally confused and have no idea what's going on. Rent went on, explaining that his gift was actually useful, not just something pointless like a bracelet. He turned to the guy, ready to make his point. He quickly grabbed the man by his shirt and picked him up off the ground. He stared the man right in the eyes and asked if it was really possible to undo everything. He clearly wasn't happy about being treated so rudely. Rent felt nervous because Moppy was flying nearby. A man rudely insisted that Rent treat him with more respect. Elle gave a sarcastic little laugh. Rent struggled to find the words because he wanted to feel strong again. Following the directions, the man took a deep breath and answered just like his teammates had. While lying on the ground, he calmly asked the team if they could give back all the magic they had taken from him. Guy stepped on his head and said they would never let that happen. He told the boy to stay away from them for good. The girls behind him laughed, amused by how badly Ren had lost. The disheveled and dirty tent rests on the ground, looking completely worn out. A guy walked by and said goodbye in a really rude way. He spun around, lifted his hand, and said with a sarcastic tone that they'd deal with it later. Rent was still lying on the ground. He groaned again, scooping up sand with his hand out of pain and frustration. He couldn't just walk away and forget about it. He slowly opened his eyes and saw his old teammates walking away while he tried to catch his breath. Suddenly, the main news agency announced that they had found out who the debtor was, and the contract was now ready. The fairy flew over and told her master he could now use his new power. Rent got up from the ground, his eyes full of anger and determination. He was ready to get payback. He used his new skill called forced gathering. The team walked ahead at a slow pace, chatting about how much that guy was getting on their nerves. Ella said she was really surprised that the guy wanted to come back. The guy answered that, after what happened, he shouldn't try to return anymore. Missy suggested they should teach him a tougher lesson so he would really learn from it. Guy gave a sly smile and told her she was being pretty mean. She smiled and looked over at Guy. Suddenly, a flood of paper money burst out of them like magic, just like what the wizard had once used. A huge surge of magical energy rushed away from the team in an instant. For a moment, Missy noticed something unusual. The guy asked her what was wrong. The girl snapped back, saying everything was fine. He guessed the girl probably noticed Rent staring at her. Missy wasn't happy about it. She told him to stop being silly, and everyone on the team burst out laughing. Missy had a strange, glowing mark on her neck, and it seemed to leave a mysterious trace behind. Marie bowed her head a little and gently asked him to forgive her. Rent was surprised and asked what was going on with the girl. She said that men seemed tougher to her than paying rent, but the guy didn't appreciate that comment. The fairy said she felt the same way, and Rent replied with a hint of frustration in her voice. Marie gave a quick smile and said she was only joking. I still wasn't completely sure, but her words helped me relax a bit. Out on the street, enchanted paper money floated through the air, heading straight for a tiny window at the top of the house, trying to get back to their old piggy bank. Suddenly, all the magical paper money the team had collected started flying super fast into the piggy bank, which really freaked the guy out. He was surprised and asked if it actually worked. The fairy confirmed that everything went as planned and the collection was a success. As this happened, the waitress standing nearby gave the guy a puzzled look. Marie explained that from now on, all the magic they gathered would go straight into his piggy bank automatically. Rent glanced at the parchment and was surprised to see that the vault now held even more magic than before. Suddenly, a voice in his head told him he had unlocked a new skill. By now, he wasn't even surprised. He'd heard this voice plenty of times before. The voice mentioned that Rent had picked up a new magical skill, and a fairy who was nearby noticed that he had gained this new ability. This is a special magical skill that uses up your own or stored magic power, but in return it boosts your current maximum magic power. If he spends 1,000 units, his maximum magic power will go up by 1. The fairy sounded curious. It was rare for her to ask anything. Was something bothering her? Rant scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed, and admitted he was hoping for something cooler and stronger. Marie gave a small smile and asked the guy what he meant, then said that it's a useful skill to have if you want to get better. The guy suddenly looked nervous and quickly agreed with her, a bit uneasy because of her smile. The fairy quietly cleared her throat. He already has endless magic, so raising his magic level won't change anything for him. He looked at the fairy and reminded her that she had mentioned ways to make someone pay up. He asked if that was really possible and wanted to know how it worked. The fairy smiled and said she would explain it quickly. She started to explain that there are 3 different ways to collect something by force. A first is a unique way to gather all the magic in just one go. The second method is payment in installments, where both the amount and the schedule of payments are decided ahead of time, but the third option is different. The fairy gave a sly smile and said the third way is called the gates to hell. It means ongoing payments. Rent looked confused, so the fairy explained that this was exactly the kind of contract they had just signed today. The guy wondered why renewable fees were such a big deal. Marie explained that, honestly, there are quite a few reasons to worry about them. She started to describe it as a trap, like sinking sand. You can struggle all you want, but there's just no way out. It was the most awful way to be caught. The girl explained that there was just one set payment, and she hinted that most of the rent had already been covered. Isn't that basically like paying in installments? The fairy staff said that breaking the total amount into smaller payments, even if paying every day is hard, helps the debtor stay focused on paying off everything in the end. She suddenly said that a renewable debt was completely different, and Rent just looked confused, not getting it at all. She said that even if someone borrows $110,000, they still make the same payment amount every time they pay it back. Rent grew curious, so the girl went on, using his old team as an example to help explain. You start with 3,600 magic power. Every hour, you recover 10% of that, which is 360, so in 24 hours, you get 8,640 more. There's also a bonus recovery of 3,000. That means you can collect a total of 11,640 magic power in one day. The fairy smiled, gently touching the abacus, and said, if you take the loan, you could get 1,435,837 units. With just 8% interest for 10 days, you could earn 115,000 mister by the end of the year. So, Rent quickly cut her off and asked if he needed to pay a fee for using his abilities. The girl kept smiling and said that, of course, there would be a price for the power of endless magical storage. The guy noticed she sounded a bit like a loan shark. Mappy explained that if you collect 11,640 each day for 10 days, you'll have a total of 116,400. Over those 10 days, the interest earned comes to 115,000. Rant slowly started to understand what was really happening. The girl kept talking to him with a sly grin, pointing out that his debt barely got any smaller at all. She explained that the people who don't pay on time just end up paying more and more interest, and with every new month, their debt grows even bigger. The guy looked completely stunned as he listened. He loudly and sharply asked the ferryman if they had truly made such a deal. She just gave a sarcastic smile and said yes, they had. Rint remembered he had trusted the fairies to handle everything. She assured him that everything was under control and there was no need to worry. The girl pointed out that the guy's old team never appreciated him, so now it's finally time for them to face the consequences. The fairy went on to explain that he was hurt because he'd been insulted and kicked out of the team they had all built together. Her voice turned harsh as she insisted that these people didn't deserve any sympathy. Rent was taken aback by her sudden attitude change and tried to reason with her. The fairy's smile turned sharp and a bit scary. He said they absolutely had to find those people, defeat them, and make them wish they'd never gotten involved. The girl quietly suggested that maybe they weren't doing things the right way themselves. Rent quickly called out to the fairy, snapping her out of her strange daydreams, and she immediately paid attention. The guy admitted it really frightened him, but Mappy said she was just showing her emotions. The people nearby were confused, wondering why he suddenly started yelling. Rent answered that things weren't exactly as they seemed, but the fairy just gave a sly, knowing smile. Rent slowly bowed his head, getting lost in his own thoughts. Mappy explained that the contract could actually be updated at any time, and the person totally understood this. The girl wondered if the guy would ever say sorry for his bad behavior, but he just answered that he would think about it. The fairy told him he was just too nice for his own good. She quickly replied that he was probably just a naive fool, which made Ren upset. He didn't like being called that and told her to stop right away. A sign showing the team was looking for new people to join their group. The girl smiled, pointed at herself, and proudly claimed she was a natural-born thief, quick on her feet, but the team quickly answered that they didn't need those skills right now. The mysterious man claimed he had powerful dark magic, and even though he looked old, he insisted he was actually much younger. Right away, the team joked that they didn't need to stress about looking after another old guy. Suddenly, the man got up from his chair and told everyone to leave, announcing that the hiring process was finished. He was upset because he thought everyone who showed up today was just a group of failures. Elthroat lifted her chin and confidently said that no one was good enough for their amazing team, and the guy quickly agreed with her. Missy picked up a piece of parchment and mentioned that this adventurer seemed really useful because he was a sniper. Guy took the paper and started looking at it closely. The guy realized that he looked a lot like someone he knew. He suddenly asked Missy if she was late paying her rent. The girl looked down and said she hated him deeply, and she was really happy he was finally out of their lives. The girl said she learned a lot from every adventure. She said she's into guys who know their own value, are dependable, and have a strong character. The guy realized something and gave the girl a curious look. Elle yelled at the girl to stay away from her boyfriend, while Missy quickly questioned which one of them was actually his girlfriend. Guy couldn't help but laugh at how silly it all was. Suddenly, he noticed something unusual on the girl's neck, so he looked at her and asked what it meant. Missy was shocked when she saw that the guy also had the same mark on his neck. Even Elsa was really surprised too. They looked at the girl and realized that every team member had the same thing around their neck. Missy stared into the mirror and wondered out loud what she was seeing. Elle guessed it was some kind of magical sign, while Guy insisted he hadn't done any magic at all. The girl suggested checking their statuses now. That might help them figure out what's going on. The girl glanced at the old parchment and realized her magic was completely gone. Maria now turned into a paper bill, swiftly floated up, and landed on the rooftop of a house. They all ended up in Ren's piggy bank, saving up over time. The guy saw that there was even more magic stored up now, and the fairy was laughing quietly next to him. Moppy said she was certain that the hero's old team must be totally stunned by everything that happened. Rent started to worry, wondering what would happen if everyone discovered this was all his fault. He was certain they would come looking for him. The fairy turned and asked if he was really that scared of them. She said that if that was true, then the guy should just fight them. Rent was shocked. He couldn't believe she thought he would ever get into a fight, especially with a group like that. He opened his eyes wide, stared at the fairy, and said he just didn't have the strength to do it. The fairy grabbed the piggy bank and soared into the sky, turning to the boy and asking if he'd picked up any new skills along the way. After giving him the piggy bank, she encouraged him to make the most of his new abilities, beginning right away. Rent stared right at his piggy bank, studying it like he had never seen it before. Bit by bit, he started to realize what was really happening. Yes, the fairy explained that this was the next step needed for the next magical gift to appear. Moppy gave a secretive smile, like she knew something exciting. The fairy suddenly recalled that on this very day, the master's spirit had reached out to him. She cried out about her hard, painful days and wished for a fresh start, hoping for a new adventure to begin. She struggled through a life where she depended on others, but now those days are behind her. From now on, he'll make his own choices and start exciting new adventures that are truly his. Mappy told Rent that he was actually really strong and just needed to believe in himself more. She smiled and said that if he ever ran into trouble, she would always be there to help him. The guy's eyes filled with tears. He felt truly thankful for the fairy's kind words. You give Mappy a big, happy smile and thank him sincerely. The girl asked him what he wanted to do in the future. She explained that while she handles gathering magic, she also wants everyone to get better and stronger in the process. Rent smiled and told them he had the perfect spot in mind. She said that just outside the city of Melba, there's a man-made lake created long ago by a powerful sorcerer. Rent said he spent some time training there after the team was put together. Moppy asked where the city was. The man answered that it was pretty far from their current location, and even if they traveled by fast carriage, it would still take around 2 weeks to get there. The fairy did some quick math and understood the situation right away. She said that even if the villains started chasing them, they'd still have a bit of time to escape. Mappy suggested they head to the city right away, and Rent quickly got up and agreed without hesitation. The fairy was scheduled to leave in 3 weeks. The girl gave a mean smile and told him that in just 3 weeks, they'd be strong enough to take on his old team. She did her best to scrub away the strange marks that suddenly showed up on her skin. A big wagon filled with people was slowly making its way forward. Rent sat down on a chair, closed his eyes, and drifted into his own thoughts. As the guy sat down, he activated his magic operation skill. Rent looked at the fairy and said they would just spend 1,000 for now. He also boosted his maximum MP by 10 points. Then, out of nowhere, the system notified him that the requirement was complete. Now, every time you use a magic skill, your magic power regenerates twice as fast. The guy was really surprised because his strength had doubled. Normally, he only recovers about 10%, so this was incredible for him. The fairy smiled and said they were still far from reaching their limit, but for now, they would use what they had wisely. The man standing by the carriage told them the cart to Melba was about to leave, so they needed to hurry up. The Heavenly Sword team gathered inside the sorcerer's shop. The man examined the sign hanging from the girl's neck and searched through his book, hoping to find something that matched, but none of the pictures or symbols looked anything like it. The old man wonders to himself, thinking over many questions. Maybe these are pieces of some ancient message. He's still confused about this symbol, and Misei asks him impatiently if he knows what it means. But he still doesn't understand it. The man said that even after working in this business for more than 80 years, he never expected to see a sign that he didn't recognize. The guy stepped forward, raised his voice, and asked why the old man was getting so worked up. Then he insisted that the old man fix their problem right away. Embarrassed, the old man quickly apologized. The team began their journey, and Guy quickly defeated a monster with a swift swing of her sword. Misei reached out and launched a fireball, blasting the monster aside. Guy touched his cheek and suddenly felt pain. He realized he'd been hit, and his cheek was stinging where he was wounded. The guy was shocked, since monsters never even got close to him before. Realizing this made him really mad. Nisa pulled out a potion and said they were in luck. The spell wouldn't last forever, but if they drank the potion, their magic would be restored. In her hand was a magic recovery potion, worth 10,000 gold. The The guy asked how many bottles the girls had. She said, about 50, and showed him the bag full of bottles. The guy was shocked to see so many potions. Miss A told him she spent 500,000 gold to buy them all. He said they'd just have to make do with what they've got for now. Miss A said that the bottles wouldn't last forever, and they had to get rid of the labels on their cabbage soup as soon as possible. This really annoyed the guy, and he thought it was a huge hassle. He touched his wound once more and asked Elle to help him heal. The girl answered that she couldn't help because she had run out of magic. The man got really mad, leaned in close to her, and yelled that she was talking nonsense. He insisted she drink the potion to get her strength back, but the girl complained that it tasted too bitter. The man told her to stop behaving like a kid and asked if she could do anything at all without the magic potion. Elle finally broke down and burst into tears, while Missy and Guy simply stood by, quietly watching her. The man walked quietly, feeling his nerves stretched to the breaking point. He was exhausted and just wanted everything to be over. Missy tried to make him stop, but he yelled at her to back off and said it wasn't his fault that Elle didn't want her magic back. Elle kept crying and shouting that she didn't want to drink the potion, even though deep down she really missed her magic. Missy grabbed the guy's hand to stop him and paused, thinking about what to do next. I started thinking about paying rent. Suddenly, the girl started to realize something she didn't want to accept. It just seemed impossible to her. She began to wonder if the person who cast the spell. Guy and Elle lined in, paying close attention to what the girl was saying. Nisa slowly blamed Rentz, saying everything was his fault, while Rentz just sat quietly in the carriage, listening to the sound of the fairy. He looked at the girl and asked if she truly enjoyed spending time in nature, and the fairy smiled and said she absolutely loved it. She quickly asked what the volcano in the distance was. Rent answered that it was Mount Gramo, and added that people say a dragon might be living in a nest at the top. Mappy's eyes lit up with excitement and pure curiosity. Rent smiled warmly, feeling moved by how the fairies acted. He always believed Marie knew everything, but now he realized that wasn't true. Today marks the 6th day of the guy's journey. All this time, he's been using magic and gradually boosting how much he can handle. Because of this, its current value has reached 4709, which is about the same as what you'd see from some top-level magician. Yes, magic operation is truly an amazing skill. He's allowed to move magical energy in and out of the vault whenever he wants, but for now, he's not really sure how to control it. Mappy believes that, sooner or later, everyone will see just how important this skill really is. Right now, he can only sit, but he's hoping for more progress soon. Mappy gazed out the window with pure excitement, taking in everything she could see outside. Suddenly, the system spoke up, announcing that 350,000 units had been used for the magic operation. It then confirmed that the requirement was fulfilled, and the magic operation had now leveled up by 1. Hearing purchase skill now available really surprised him. At first, he didn't quite get what it meant. The fairy came near and told us that our master could handle it. Rent was confused. He stared at the parchment and said nothing had changed. It still looked the same to him. The fairy told him all he had to do was give it a little wave, which really surprised him. Moppy showed the guy exactly what to do by pointing her finger and encouraging him to follow her instructions. She also mentioned that if you slide your finger up from the bottom. Rent did exactly that, and right after he swiped up, loads of new information showed up on the parchment. The guy's eyes went wide with surprise. Everything he saw was incredible. The fairy smiled and asked, "Isn't this an amazing collection?" Rent scanned the text, focusing on the new skills listed on his sheet. Mappy explained that all of these were gifts from God, and people usually couldn't just get them whenever they wanted. The man wondered if you could actually buy those things. The fairy gave a wicked smile, knowing he had figured it out. The girl said everything was happening because she had a rare SSS rank skill. After finishing her story, Moppy asked the boy what kind of adventure he wanted to have. She said she'd always be happy to help him with advice, and pointed out that now he could learn almost any skill he wanted. After 2 weeks, the couple finally arrived in the city of Melba. Rent stood right in the middle of the street, glancing all around, taking everything in. The fairy mentioned that this place is always crowded, and the guy explained that adventurers from everywhere visit to explore the famous Melba labyrinth. Don't ask too harshly. Rent was there when he began his journey, right? The man said yes, he was. They walked into a tiny shop. The attractive girl asked the guy if he belonged to any group and if he was really sure about moving from his old city to Melba. He confidently said yes. The girl smiled and told him that his registration went through without any problems. The guy had just earned the chance to take on the big lab challenge, and she congratulated him for reaching this milestone. Rent said it would give him a good head start. The fairy gave a wicked smile and said they had nothing to fear if those troublemakers showed up. The couple arrived at a massive maze. They waited by the gates of Melba's great labyrinth, ready to step inside. The guide pointed up and said, "That's where the dungeon is." She encouraged her master to keep going, and the boy cheerfully said yes. They started moving ahead together, ready to see what their new adventure would bring. Level 1, the Great Plains. Adventurers with F rank are recommended to start here. Moppy looks forward and wonders how they wound up in this place. The guy explains that they're in the famous labyrinth of Melba. He guessed that an ancient sorcerer might have created this place, but nobody really knows for sure. Suddenly, they heard a noise coming from the grass. A few Manitoba rats suddenly showed up ahead of them. They were small, aggressive, and always looking to bite into human flesh. Rent quickly drew his weapon and faced the demons that suddenly appeared in his path. He was ready for them and excited to finally put his skills to the test. The rats rushed ahead, moving fast, ready to attack and bite. The guy recalls Mappy mentioning a powerful skill for fighting up close, and this really grabs his attention. Rent pulled out a small dagger, explaining to the ferryman that it was just for protection. However, he hardly ever needed to use it. Mappy smiled and said everything was fine. Maybe it was a good time to finally give it a try. Rent quickly moved in and landed the first hit, injuring the little rat. This is a basic scam trick used by beginners. It costs 1,000 mister to use. The boy swung his knife once more, taking out another rat in his way. As he kept going, he found more confidence and quickly defeated each rat that came at him. The fairy in the carriage started talking about a new kind of attack, long-range attacks. Rent realized he needed magic that was simple, fast, and reliable, so he gave the girl just one choice. The rat lunged from behind, baring its teeth and trying to bite the man, but he quickly shifted his hand, getting ready to fight back. Rent quickly waved his hand and cast a fireball spell. This basic fire magic uses up 1,000 megapixels every time it's performed. Rent stood in a quiet alley, catching his breath after the fight. His hand was a bit burned from the attack. The fairy showed up right away and cheered for the boy, impressed by how fast he learned magic. She called out, amazed at his quick progress. Over time, Rent improved his skills. He became quicker, more flexible, and even learned some magic. He said he owed all of this progress to Mappy's helpful advice. Right beside them in the grass, Lee noticed a small object shining oddly in the sunlight. The fairy saw some jewels drop from the rats, and the guy explained that it was all because of a magic stone. Ren explained that when they defeat demons in the dungeon, the creatures turn into magic stones. The stronger the demon, the more valuable the stone. If you bring these stones to the guild, you can trade them for money. The fairy's eyes sparkled with excitement, and she asked if it was really true. She said she suddenly felt full of energy and motivation. Rent turned and saw a small group of people shouting and waving their injured hands as they tried to scare away the rats. The girl shouted that she was almost out of her medicine. The guy told her to hurry, reminding her that if they finished in time, they'd earn a lot of money. Mappy laughed and said they were just regular beginners. Rent smiled and admitted they used to be the same way. He remembers how he used to stay at the back, quietly supporting his team with magical power. The fairy smiled and watched the rats. When the rats saw her, they scurried over, and the girl quickly told the boy what was happening. Rent, showing no fear at all, lifted his dagger and defeated the rats. From now on, everything in his life would change. His heart is pounding really fast. He had never experienced a feeling like this in his whole life. A man sits on a rock and stares down at his feet quietly. He quickly reached out his hand and cast a healing spell. The basic healing magic needed 1,000 MP to work. Moppy cheerfully flew close and said that if things kept going like this, it would level up in no time, and the guy agreed with a smile. He suddenly gave a big smile and told the fairy he'd love to stay another year to see what more he could do. Moppy grinned and said it was an awesome idea. Rent and Mesa are sitting together in the cart, calmly heading off on a gentle ride. Suddenly, the guy looks at the girl and asks if she still remembers his dream of going on an adventure. Missy gave a big smile and said she definitely remembered. Suddenly, the girl placed her hand gently on his and told him she often thought about him, which made him blush. She also said that once she started her adventures, she knew she wanted to be by his side. Missy's expression turned serious, and with a harsh voice, she said the guy was completely worthless. Rent suddenly sprang out of bed. He was out of breath. The fairy rested close by, feeling a bit sad and lost in thought. He wondered to himself, was all of this just a dream? The next day, the team set out for their next challenge, Melba's Great Labyrinth. This was level 2, called Great Goblin Sea, and it was known as a top adventure spot, recommended for anyone at level E. Rent moved slowly between the trees, noticing how dense and tangled the plants and bushes were in this part of the forest. He touched his chin with his finger and activated his basic presence detection skill, spending 5,000 megapixels to do it. Ren thinks there are probably goblins up ahead, and he suspects it might be an entire colony. The guy realizes it's pretty easy to beat them when they fight alone since they're not very strong, but things get tough because they almost always attack him all at once. The fairy hovers close by, giggling in a mischievous way. She thinks it's the perfect moment to let the guys use their new skills. He agreed, understanding she was right. It was time for him to get stronger. Rent activates a basic signal blocking skill, which costs 5,000 megapixels to use. With a single hit, the guy knocked out one goblin, and right away, he finished off the second one too. In a tiny goblin village, every dreamer had their own job and happily followed their passion. I found the rent money hidden in some bushes close to the village. He carefully picked up the piggy bank and used his power to let out a gentle flow of magic. The goblins spotted the man and stared at him, waiting to see what he would do next, but suddenly they lost control and lunged at him with open mouths, ready to attack. Sheets of magical energy floated down like paper money, glowing and burning up in the air before they could ever touch the ground. Frowning, Rent reached out his hand and used his magic to make a few bright fireballs appear. The balls flew straight and smashed every goblin they touched, wiping them out completely. Thick smoke drifted up, allowing us to finally see what was happening inside the goblin village. Rent stared forward, excited to discover he could finally use magic whenever he wanted, and he loved the feeling. Using magical power puts a lot of strain on your body. The fairy Astromaster asked him if he could keep running for a long time. He said no, he would get tired. She explained that magic works the same way, no one can use magic nonstop. The fairy explained that you can gather magical energy around your body and save it to use whenever you need it. Moppy said that you can cast the same spell one after another, and now it's possible to unleash several spells all at once. Rent moved ahead carefully, glancing around to see if things had worked out the way he hoped. Suddenly, the guy saw a massive goblin standing right in front of him. It was the goblin chieftain, the boss of the whole group. Rent launched more fireballs, and they burst into flames the moment they hit the goblin. He was completely consumed by fire, leaving nothing but ashes behind. The theory loudly claimed that everything was going perfectly, but the guy just laughed nervously. The girl exclaimed that he had taken down a whole group of goblins, all by himself. Rent smiled and said he wasn't alone. He explained that the fairy was close by. Moppy gave a shy laugh and told him that was really kind of him. The fairy stood tall, pumped her fist, and said they should keep going with the same positive energy. The couple walked into the guild together. A lovely girl stood by the scales and announced they were about to weigh the stones the goblins had left. Altogether, there were 1,341 stones. She also mentioned that these were worth 134,100 gold coins. The girl went on to say that for defeating the goblin leader, the guy would get 10,500 gold. All the other loot and materials he collected on his adventure were worth another 42,000 gold. The girl was about to announce the total reward he would receive. In the end, the total was 186,600 gold. The girl placed a massive bag in front of the guy, which really surprised him. Even the fairy's eyes sparkled at seeing so much money. As night settled over the city, a man and his friend were unwinding together in a cozy little hotel. The fairy happily munched on her crispy fried squid, enjoying every bite. She felt great after enjoying a delicious lunch. Ren explained that, thanks to their teamwork, the boys had leveled up from E rank to D as adventurers. He realized that if he kept practicing his new skills, he could get even stronger. The boy clenches his fist and feels a new confidence. If he keeps working hard, he knows he'll soon be able to defend himself against Guy. This motivation drives him to keep training. The fairy smiled with pride and explained that since the guy had moved to a new city, his old team wouldn't find him easily. But she warned it was only a matter of time before they learned about the contract and came searching for them. Mappy said they still needed to gather 150,000 more units. She also mentioned that if they learn new skills, there's nothing to worry about anymore. Rent was worried because 150,000 units sounded like a huge number, and it seemed like a long way to reach that goal, but the fairy reassured them, saying they could handle it and there was no need to be concerned. She put her hands together like she was praying and thanked the boy for bringing her the food. Rent asked if the girl wanted something else, and the fairy wondered if there was anything more delicious to try. The guy smiled and said she could have as much food as she liked. He wanted to show his gratitude for everything she had done for him. Muppy smiled and said she needed his magic to help her this time. The guy was surprised and asked again, but this time he got a quick and clear answer. For her, magical power is the best treat. It's like pure nectar. Rent looked surprised again and said she should have told him about her powers sooner. The fairy got offended and argued that becoming a master was way more important. Then, Rent asked what price she wanted. Moppy grinned, impressed that he agreed, and confidently asked for 100. Rent picked up the piggy bank and asked how to use it properly, suggesting maybe there's a special trick or skill to it. The fairy made a funny face with her lips, and the guy was really surprised. The girl explained that direct contact was necessary to make things clear right away, but the fairy insisted it was the simplest and quickest way. The boy just needed to agree, even if he felt a little grumpy about it. He held Mappy in his hand and softly brushed his finger over her lips. After their kiss, the fairy happily snuggled into the guy's arms, looking completely content and satisfied. Rent asked if the fairy was doing okay. Marie smiled brightly and said she was doing great. The guy stopped for a moment and realized this was actually his first ever kiss. Once again, we see a cart carrying a group of people riding together. Young Missy smiles and says that Rent's mom has the most amazing and unique talent. She said she always knew the boy was meant for exciting adventures, and Rent smiled, mentioning that Guy had said the exact same thing to him. The guy was actually sleeping on the hay right behind them. The girl explained that he had learned the swordsman's skill, but she didn't think it was anything special. She said D-rank talents like his weren't uncommon. Missy smiled and asked Rant if they could go on a journey together now. He grinned and agreed, saying it would be exciting to make plenty of newsworthy adventures along the way. The girl's cheeks turned red, and she looked at Rent in a new way. She smiled and said everything he said sounded wonderful, then gently asked if there was another way they could be together. Rent's cheeks turned bright red. He was so caught off guard by the girl's suggestion that he couldn't speak for a few seconds. All he managed to do was say her name. With big, adorable eyes, the girl asked the boy if he loved her. He answered with a quiet, nervous yes, looking away as his cheeks turned bright red. Missy took a deep breath, ready to make the first move. She gently puckered her lips and slowly leaned in. Within moments, her lips were just a heartbeat away from Rent's, hanging in the air with anticipation. Suddenly, instead of feeling the girl's warm lips, the guy felt something cold. He opened his eyes and realized he was being kissed by an apple, not the girl. Rent was obviously upset and quickly let her know by shouting in fear. Missy just laughed and said sorry to him for making such a silly joke. The girl smiled gently, apologized once more, and said she wasn't ready for a serious relationship right now. She thought the idea was silly and just wanted to make a joke about it. Rent rubbed the back of his head and smiled awkwardly. Now he finally understood what was going on. They had played a silly joke on him. Even though he felt a little embarrassed, he didn't hold it against them. There was no reason to get upset. Suddenly, they heard someone shouting from behind. He was annoyed by the noise outside, and it made him turn around. He was a bit startled to wake up so quickly, but Missy told him they could rest a bit longer since the city was still far away. Rent couldn't forget the pain of betrayal. These were people he once trusted deeply, but they gave him up for a few bracelets. Now, he's determined to get his revenge, no matter what. The guy was filled with anger, despair, and a deep sense of loss. These strong emotions pushed him to focus on getting revenge and motivated him to come back even stronger than before. If he never met Mappy, his life might have gone in a very different direction. He could have stayed out on the streets, left in the rain, and been completely forgotten by everyone. He gently tucked the blanket around her, making sure she'd stay warm and cozy all night long. As he gazed at the fairy, he felt something unusual inside. It wasn't love or anything like that, and he couldn't really say what his feelings were for this tiny, mischievous girl. Just seeing her makes him feel peaceful and happy inside. He feels alive again. Her presence comforts him and reminds him that he isn't alone. He notices a warm feeling of happiness inside. Wrapping himself in his blanket, he gently whispers good night to the sleeping fairy beside him as the stars shine brightly above the city. Adventure means being part of a team that supports you every step of the way. The girl at the counter gives a practiced smile and repeats that, like she said before, Mr. Rent is somewhere in the city. The man insisted it couldn't be him, since the police had already been searching for him for several days. The woman said she was sorry to hear that. The man got angry again and started yelling at her, demanding to know who she thought he really was. Music gently approached and said, "Hey, take it easy. There's no reason to start another argument." Sitting at home, Missy wondered just how much energy they were using. The paper showed that the team's borrowed magic was 2,678,078. Missy said she wasn't surprised. She already expected that. The girl points out that there's less magic today than there was yesterday. The guy gets angry at another guy, realizing he's still stealing their magic. Miss A glances at the parchment and suddenly notices details she missed before. She realizes she never paid attention to how much magic power they were using. Still, everything feels odd to her. She explained that their group, along with the bracelets, brings in some magic from natural recovery, but the girl realized that borrowing even less magic just isn't enough. The man stood up and asked what she was talking about. Miss A answered that even she didn't completely understand what was going on. Elle asked how much longer they'd need to use these potions, because they tasted really bitter and were pretty expensive. Miss A got up from her chair and said they just needed to wait. For now, she figured out that if each person drank 45 bottles, they would recover their energy and not lose any magic at all. They started complaining loudly, saying she didn't want to drink it anymore and told him to finish it for her. The guy got upset and asked what kind of silly talk that was. However, Miss A was actually curious about what the girl said. Adventure means joining a team and working together to achieve exciting goals. The middle-aged man, once called upon by the Heavenly Sword team, sat calmly, smoking in silence. As he was enjoying a peaceful moment by himself, Mesa suddenly called his name with a firm voice. The girl arrived wearing very revealing clothes and asked her grandfather if he recognized her. The man thought they were part of that group, and Mesa felt happy he recognized them. The girl quietly moved to stand next to him and softly said they really needed his help. They couldn't do it without him. Grandpa was really surprised by how much the girls insisted. He never thought they would push him out of their group and then return later, asking him for help. At the next table, Guy sat quietly, clearly unhappy. He thought about how Miss A had come up with the entire plan her own way, and how Maria had only taken a bit of magic instead of all of it. She hardly ever left the table, and often mentioned that the team just needed someone new, with strong magic skills to boost everyone's power. Guy liked the idea and thought it would help keep others from being influenced, while Elle called the girl a genius. When they looked at the parchment from the old man they'd met recently, they understood how important he was. Now, they needed to find him, and luckily, it didn't take them long. With a cheerful tone, Miss A asked him for an answer, leaning in as close as she could. She really hoped her plan would succeed and did everything possible to make it happen. The old man blushed and tried to look up, but it was difficult for him. Suddenly, a few adventurers came up from behind. The old man turned to them, relieved that help had finally arrived. The guy asked who the girls were standing by, and the old man said they weren't with anyone, they just had a question. Miss A quickly asked if he wasn't free anymore. The man answered that wasn't exactly true. The old man revealed that everyone in the guild already knew about the strange curse affecting the Heavenly Sword team. His voice was full of sarcasm, and his expression made it clear he didn't think much of the team's current situation. He apologized and said he absolutely didn't want to get mixed up with people like that. To him, it would be like taking on their bad luck, and he definitely didn't want that. Nobody wants to be part of any rumors. Miss A started complaining loudly. Elle tried to calm her down. Guy gritted his teeth in anger. They felt more embarrassed than ever before. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. They just wanted to smash something. The guy overheard a conversation behind him. The girl who didn't get accepted into the team was making fun of them, saying, "Look at this. They didn't want me before, but now they're the ones begging." She decided that the team shouldn't have been so full of themselves. The man nearby said they must have made someone really mad, and now they were paying the price. The girl sighed and admitted she used to like them, but the man said their moment was already over. Neither of them cared about what happened to the team, since they believed the team brought it on themselves. A man came up from behind, way too close, and snapped, "Are you talking about us?" You could see the anger in his eyes and hear it in his voice. He looked ready to slam his fist on the table at any moment. Grabbing the man's shirt, he shouted angrily and cursed, demanding to know why he was talking nonsense, and asked sharply if their time was already up. Elle also tried to calm him down. Suddenly, the administrator spoke directly to the Sky Sword Squad. The girl said she had understood their question, and now she knew where Mr. Rent was. Miss A and Guy quickly ran up to her and bluntly asked, "Where is he?" The girl said that Mr. Rent was working in Melba. The girl couldn't believe the guy actually traveled to the city with the giant maze. Miss A is surprised at how far he ended up. The guy just looked shocked and said it didn't matter to him. He was determined to find him and take him down himself. His eyes burned with anger, ready to crush anyone in his path, and he hoped the guy would cross his way soon. Guy stepped out of the bushes after his adventure. The fairy exclaimed excitedly that they had finally discovered the way to the 3rd level. Ren explains that as you go further, the monsters get tougher and a lot more dangerous, so he'll have to work much harder than before. Level 3, Wrath Cave. best for adventurers with rank D. Marie said she thought there might be a trap here, since the room was dark and the hallways were barely lit. The girl stopped her car all of a sudden. She actually liked the dark, mysterious vibe of this place. For the first time, it felt like a real dungeon to her. Rent felt awkward about how she was acting. But then he surprisingly agreed with her and started to enjoy the dungeon view too. He admitted his heart was racing, and the fairy smiled and said she felt exactly the same way. Just in time, the hero dodges the attack and quickly strikes with their dagger, hitting the skeleton's core immediately. The enemy was beaten quickly and unexpectedly. Rent realized the monsters on this dungeon level seemed to attack when they heard noise. That's when the fairy came up with a suggestion. They could speak with their minds. The boy was shocked to hear a voice inside his head, but Moppy reassured him and showed that he could communicate this way as well. He spoke to her and the fairy answered, saying she could hear him. The guardian, a bit annoyed, said she should have mentioned this earlier on their journey. Moppy just laughed and said sorry for not telling him. As the team moved ahead on this new floor, the fairy felt relieved, since it was much cooler here than on the levels before. The caves can be pretty tricky to navigate, so the guy has to stay alert for any surprise attacks. To help with this, he uses a spell called Detect Presence. As he checked the results, he noticed some adventurers battling a monster nearby, so he took the chance to observe the creature more closely. Suddenly, the main character started running, leaving his friend puzzled and eager to find out what was going on. Rent thought they were just regular monsters, but the fairy didn't get it, so the man explained. These were actually tough enemies, way stronger than what you usually find on this floor. Sometimes, strong demons from the lower levels randomly show up on the easier, upper floors. That was the monster the boy was heading toward. Mappy figured her master wanted to help those in trouble. He just smiled and apologized for being too kind. But the magical planner wasn't worried at all. She could already see how this situation could turn out to be a good thing. Rent bumped into a few strangers nearby. The warrior yelled, "Why is he running around here?" The stranger quickly said sorry. Seeing the tension, the magician urged Rent to keep moving, and the healer agreed. The girl was upset that they were leaving so quickly, but the warrior believed escaping was safer than risking their lives. The magician simply said they'd find better luck somewhere else. As the strangers walked away, the fairy wondered if they were the adventurers who had been attacked. The keeper was certain these weren't the same people as before, but they had still noticed someone who didn't belong. He was more concerned that someone had stayed behind on purpose. Mappy thought someone must have gotten trapped. The man quickly moved ahead, but soon ran into a dead end. But as he looked closer, he noticed this wall wasn't like the others. It was made from some kind of magic. When he touched it, he felt a gentle warmth, which meant someone had created it just a short while ago. The main character came across a wall made by a group of adventurers. Realizing this, Rent told his friend to step back, then used a fireball to blow the wall apart. As the dust cleared, the main character saw a terrifying four-armed skeleton standing before him. Before he could react, the fairy quickly pointed out a worn-out warrior nearby. The girl refused to quit. She shouted as loudly as she could, daring the monster to come at her. As the girl battled another monster, the man urged her to hurry. She took his advice and apologized for slowing down. The mage used a healing spell on the man. The man joked that it took quite a while, but the mage just shrugged and didn't seem to mind. The team wanted to reach the 3rd level today. The mage was okay with it since he still had plenty of magic, as long as they didn't bump into a huge group of monsters. The girl finally got up the courage to ask for help too, but her friends didn't want to use magic on such a small cut. The other girl didn't really care about Rinka and just gave her some half-hearted encouragement. The warrior said sorry in a sad and quiet voice. The team said it was Rinka's fault they were still stuck at rank D and told her to stop joining their battles. Rinka apologized once more. But her friend just got more upset with her, saying she should try harder instead of just saying sorry. Suddenly, something startled them both. The mage wasn't sure what kind of monster stood before him. He thought it might be the 3rd-level boss, but his friend quickly realized it was actually an irregular. The man called out to the girl, but she stood her ground. She was determined not to let her team down this time. He nodded in an odd way and said she could still be helpful one last time. Rinka, confused by his words, decided to ask him again what he meant. While the girl was busy battling the monster, she didn't realize her team was already backing away. When a protective wall appeared, the man quickly urged everyone to move. It was time to escape. Rinka could hardly keep up with blocking the enemy's strikes, and she was stunned when she realized they had chosen to trap her in with their boss. The girl tried not to think about being left behind. Instead, she told herself that staying back would help her team get away safely. Even though her team thought she was the weak link holding them back, Rinka was determined to give it her all and fight until the very end. The warrior prepared to strike, but her sword was too weak for the battle. Deep down, she refused to believe her end was near. Just as the skeleton was about to move, a loud explosion shook the ground and knocked him down. The fairy started joking with the monster, asking if he enjoyed the fireball. Without hesitating, the guy checked if the girl was all right and offered to help her. But then Rinka saw something move and quickly told him that the skeleton was still alive. The main character realized the skeleton was more than it seemed, so he knew he had just one choice left. Rent threw a fireball to stun his enemy. Then he spotted the core. He quickly chose to attack with his dagger since he didn't have time to use magic again. Moppy was worried about the master, but he told her not to worry, he was okay. The monster charged at Rent, roaring loudly, but Rent quickly spotted its weak point and got ready to defeat it with a single strike. The main character cast the magic operation spell and prepared to defeat their enemy. Rent threw a huge fireball at a monster 20 times bigger than himself. The four-armed skeleton couldn't handle the hero's powerful attack and was finally defeated. People in the market were chatting about the upcoming A-rank meteor shower in Melba, trying to decide if they should go watch it or not. Right now, Roger from the Media Showers squad was busy signing autographs for fans. A man walked up and asked him to autograph his shirt, which caught the adventurer off guard. The fan explained that he wanted to use the shirt as a good luck charm on his own trips, and the adventurer happily agreed. Right then, someone called out to Roger. Comment, who is part of the Meteor Shower squad, warned the man that if he didn't eat his rice soon, she'd take it away. The adventurer asked her to give him a little more time and promised he'd finish it. Still, the girl wasn't interested in waiting for his rice to get cold. Namiria, who's part of the Media Shower team, jokingly said that Roger is still as popular as always. Right now, Jin, one of the Meteor Shower squad members, was sharing their big goal to conquer the Great Labyrinth. He wondered aloud if the Lord would bless their mission. The rest of the team cheered for Jin, and one of them even placed a bet that they'd pull it off. But the adventurer argued because there was no money involved in the bet. Meanwhile, Fuga from the Meteor Shower squad quietly sipped his tea, staying out of the loud discussion. Suddenly, a group rushed out of the labyrinth, shouting that something had gone wrong. A strange creature showed up in the large maze on the third floor. The witness said it looked like a skeleton with 4 arms. Roger quickly understood that he meant a 4-armed skeleton. A worried girl hurried over to the adventurers, asking if everyone was okay and where they had seen him. She promised to send a rescue team right away. The 3 told her she was safe, but their friend was still in danger. The man explained that Rinka chose to distract him so they could get away. The girl was shocked and couldn't believe it. Afterwards, she tried to find out if their friend had passed away, but the man, understanding her question, sadly admitted that she was probably gone. When the girl heard his concerns, she quickly turned to her coworker and asked her to look through the labyrinth to see if anyone was there. Her coworker started searching right away and asked for the victim's name. The girl's friends felt sad when they thought of her, because Rinka was the kind of person who wished no harm to anyone. Just then, the man got some important news. Everyone was thrilled to hear the good news. The girl was still alive. Someone quickly suggested they go rescue her right away. The team was surprised and clearly didn't expect her to still be alive, which is why they had locked their teammate inside. The girl noticed everyone whispering strangely, but Roger quickly put a stop to any talk. The Meteor Shower squad is ready to take down the irregular and rescue Rinka. The girl looked at the group, unsure. Roger told her they hadn't spent much time in the labyrinth yet, so they could just take a quick walk to get comfortable. Comment added that it would be fun. People began chatting excitedly because the team had so much potential. It made everyone feel hopeful. Suddenly, someone shouted out that they didn't need any help. Rent had defeated the monster and was leading the girl out of the labyrinth safe and sound. When Rinka's team saw her, they shouted her name in shock and relief. The hero defeated the strange creature, and all that was left behind was a big magic stone. Then Roger walked over, looking surprised, and asked if it was really for Rent. The guardian warmly welcomed an old friend he hadn't seen in ages. The man was curious about the girl standing beside him. Rinka answered herself, saying that this guy had helped her get away. The crowd began cheering, saying the guy was really impressive. Suddenly, the man anxiously asked the manager if he was the one who had helped them. Jin quickly interrupted and told him to thank Rent for saving his friend. But the main character replied seriously, saying there was no need because they had already used Rinka as bait. The man was surprised and asked him again. Numeria raised an eyebrow, questioning if the bait was real, but the girl quickly insisted she was there by choice, just like her team said. The warrior acted offended, loudly claiming he had told the truth all along and accusing the keeper of making things up. Rent told the girl to take a look at a wall made by magic. The 3 of them used magic to create the wall and block Rink's way out. If you examine the wall closely, you can figure out who cast the spell. People began to criticize what happened, and feeling desperate, the man asked the girl to confirm that her friends were telling the truth and that the whole story was just made up by that guy. Adventurers can be unpredictable. There's no promise they'll see another day, so they have to trust the people in their group. But this group of three has only experienced being betrayed and left behind. Roger believed this team shouldn't even be here, but then he felt a tap on his shoulder. After quietly talking things over with Fugue, the adventurer felt much more at ease. The worker asked if there was any excuse. Roger didn't want to get mixed up in it anymore, so he suggested they try something different and go hunting instead. Jean liked the idea too. The man asked if the gardener was available the evening after tomorrow. The main character didn't really get what he meant, but Roger had already said goodbye and was about to leave. Numeria said goodbye and promised to see them again soon. Jin thanked him for doing a great job, while Comet rudely shoved him aside, thinking he was blocking the way. Fuga quietly said sorry for the girl's actions, but the guy didn't mind at all. Watching them, Moppy joked that they were a lively bunch. Rent just laughed and agreed, because after all, this was the Meteor Shower Squad. The girl named Rinka was called over and asked some questions about what happened. After everything was done, the worker thanked her for helping out. The crystal kept glowing blue the whole time, showing that she was telling the truth. The girl was curious about what happened to her old team. At that moment, they were being questioned in a different room. Because of their actions and making false reports to the guild, they were at risk of getting long prison sentences. They will also be banned from becoming adventurers forever. Instead, they'll have to spend many years working in the mines. Rink tried to figure it out, but in the end, she just said she understood. The girl thanked Rent once again for his help. The guy asked her what she was going to do next, but she didn't have any plans since the team had already split up. The keeper wanted to lift her spirits, so he showed her the big bag of money they got after defeating the skeleton. Rent said it was all because of her help, so he wanted to do something nice to thank her. The girl blushed and softly said she didn't need anything. The man confessed that his own friends had left him as well. Rinka was surprised, but then the keeper said that since they were both there, he was willing to listen to anything she wanted to say. As they sat together in the tavern, the girl admitted she'd been dumped 7 times. The main character couldn't believe it was really that many. She chose to be honest and admitted her heart was hurting, not because of rejection, but for a totally different reason. Rinka got a special gift called the Path of Usura, but it didn't help her escape the battlefield. The guy was amazed because this gift was extremely rare and special. The girl said honestly that these were just words. She felt weak because she struggled to handle her own sword, but receiving the gift still pushed her to keep fighting. Her fate is to fight for her life, but the boy struggled with his special power too. His old friends abandoned him when he was no longer helpful to them, and the Guardian was filled with regret for not being strong enough. But this gift might actually save him. It's called infinite magic storage, just like Rinka's special power. The girl listened and thought about what he said. Deep down, she hoped she could be just as confident one day. Ren suggested that Rinka should start a team. She was surprised, but he explained that his talent is helping others, so they would make a good team. The girl couldn't forget how people made fun of her, especially the words from her last boss. After that, she had to say sorry for quitting. She thought teaming up would just hold the keeper back, so maybe it was best if she worked by herself. When the girl saw a strange creature she had never seen before, she got scared and shouted that there were ancient remains. Moppy smiled at Rinka and said hello, introducing herself as someone helping Mr. Rent, while the boy was still getting over the loud scream. The girl couldn't believe she had really seen a fairy, and Mappy quickly said sorry for startling her. At first, only the Guardian of Magic could see her, but now, as his powers have grown, she can appear to anyone she chooses. Rinky felt calm because she never had to stress about rent. Everyone saw her as a smart investment. Rinka felt frightened because she didn't understand what Moppy was saying. The main character was upset and demanded an explanation from her friend, but Moppy simply replied that it was a compliment. After that, Rinka started to think about it. If Rinka teams up with the guy, she'll get stronger, and as she improves, Rent will benefit too. Helping each other is what the Keeper of Magic is all about. Rinka nervously asked if she would really become more powerful. He replied confidently that yes, she definitely would. Seeing that Rinka was still unsure, the Keeper suggested they try the plan for just one day. Remembering how Rant had helped her before, the girl decided to trust him. After all, he had saved her once. At least she was determined to give it her all. After that, they headed to the guild together and spoke to the administrator. The company named its new division Double Deviation when they registered it. After receiving the payment, the seller handed over 20 healing potions and then hesitantly gave Misei a warning. This potion pushes magic ahead, in a way. If you use it too much, you'll eventually run into trouble. The magician felt annoyed when the seller tried to give her advice, saying he rarely used it himself. She just laughed, held her head high, and walked away, while the man awkwardly noticed that this seemed to happen to him all the time. The express wagon to Melba was getting ready to go. The men inside noticed the group at the very back and realized they were looking at the two-headed silver wolf. With a skilled B-rank squad traveling alongside them, everyone felt safe and secure. Suddenly, another group came closer, and Guy firmly suggested that Distra and Sinistra, the two members from the Silver Wolf squad, change places. LNVED liked the comfortable spot they'd found. Missy wasn't happy about where they ended up. The swordsman even insisted they move to a better place. The siblings realized that these are members of the Boundless Sky Sword Squad, a B-rank team known for being the fastest to rise in the ranks. Guy recognized the person sitting in front of him because they were always struggling to keep up at the bottom of the B rank. Roly, one of the two-headed Silver Wolf clan, was tired of the swordsman making fun of him. Still, Guy wouldn't let up. Then Distra and Sinistra volunteered to switch places, even though the girls on their team couldn't figure out why they wanted to do it. They stepped aside for the amazing team, but even then, people still made fun of them. Sirika, who was part of the two-headed Silver Wolf squad, didn't really get along with these three. She also wasn't convinced that the leader had made the right choice. This is an express carriage. It gets you where you need to go twice as fast as a regular high-speed coach because it can take risky shortcuts that normal carriages avoid. The person sitting at the very end of the carriage, by some unspoken rule, becomes the silent, watchful guardian for everyone's trip. Their team picked a very important job, but they didn't really understand just how serious it was. Sarika was upset by how careless the three seemed, but Sinistra told her that a B-rank squad would never act so irresponsibly. Shannon, one of the two-headed silver wolves, paused for a moment and realized she didn't really like them that much. Right now, the cart was speeding through a creepy forest, making the guards really nervous as they tried to keep everyone safe on the road. Suddenly, someone shouted, warning everyone in the cart that orcs were up ahead. The monsters had already attacked the convoy. One of the soldiers called out to the adventurers, saying there were 3 orcs and they needed backup right away. The wolves had an important task ahead. Roly was abruptly woken up by another group, while Guy was left confused about what was happening. However, their brother and sister suggested that it was finally time for the guardians of this journey to reveal their true strength. In this fight, the enemies were high orcs. Since B-rank units are strong, they should defeat them without any trouble. The monster on the right went after the two-headed wolf, the one on the left targeted the sword of the boundless sky, and the one in the center headed for the convoy. The adventurers were surrounded by thick forest, so they had to defeat their enemies fast before more monsters showed up. Distra and his team were ready to handle the situation quickly, just like they always did. Sirika cast a speed spell on her friends, then Roly charged straight at the orc to grab its attention. The twins raised their swords and cast a spell called Chains of Humility, trapping their enemy. Then, Shannon unleashed a swirling fire tornado straight at them. The wolves finished their job in just 7 seconds. That's pretty fast, though not the fastest ever. While this happened, the soldiers tried to hurt the orc, but all they did was make it even angrier. When the feudal soldiers tried to fight back but started to lose, Distra and Sinistra teamed up and used their special move, Silver Scissors, to win the battle. The soldiers were grateful for the help, but Roly still felt uneasy about something. Guy insisted that Elle use her magic to make things louder, but she couldn't because she hadn't taken the special potion yet. Meanwhile, Missy felt unwell after drinking the first bottle. The swordsman criticized his teammates, saying they weren't helping much, and the audience couldn't figure out what the team's real purpose was. The orc was getting closer, and the girls were counting on Guy to fix the situation, but Guy wasn't sure the potion would work in time. The warrior stopped drinking the potion, thinking he would always have his skills, but in the end, the orc proved to be even stronger. Missy started to question what was going on, since they had beaten orcs like these many times before. Guy didn't want to hear her worries. All he cared about was using his power to its limits. The swordsman really needed his magic back. As he was deep in thought, the twins finished off the final enemy. The battle had ended, and the path ahead was open. People cheered for the heroes as they rode by in their carriage. The siblings said sorry to Guy's team for getting involved. They explained they were just guarding the carriage and doing their job, but the swordsman thought there was no need for their help because he believed his crew could take care of things on their own. The twins were getting impatient, so they joked that they totally believed what the warrior was saying. As they were leaving, both of them remarked that a reputation can easily be lost. Guy tried to say something challenging, but stopped abruptly because his injury hurt. When Sinistra saw the blood, she told Serka to heal him. Serka hesitated. She wanted to save her magic, but she agreed to help anyway. The soldiers suspected that the leaders of the B-rank squads had the legendary illiterate sky sword. Rowley understood now that all the rumors about these leaders were actually true. A mysterious spell has taken away their skills, but if their rank is truly important to them, they should still be able to fight using just their own strength. Sirica impatiently pushed the team to hurry up, knowing they had to escape before more monsters showed up. People were excitedly talking to each other, sharing stories about the three adventurers as they walked by. Guy was convinced they could have won if it hadn't been for the mark. Misset put all the blame on the main character. The swordsman thought about the rent, now feeling even more angry and bitter. The new double squad in Melba is officially registered. It's a level F team with members Rent and Rink. The system notified the main character that he was now part of the second squad. He also met the requirements to increase his lending magic, which leveled up to 2. Rent now has the auto-compensation skill. When his magic drops too low, this ability instantly gives him more magical energy. The Guardian doesn't have to keep track of his friend's magic strength while fighting anymore. Rinka thanks the guy for letting her borrow the repair fluid. She spreads it on her armor, and it looks brand new. Rint is happy he could help, but he has something else in mind. The girl was shocked and asked about her sword. He told her she had broken it in the last fight, so he took a skeleton's weapon, melted it down, and had the blacksmith make her a new sword. Since everything was already paid, the swordswoman just needed to pick it up and claim it for herself. The girl's presence completely transformed, and even the blacksmith could sense the difference. Rent asked the girl how she felt about the sword. Wrinkle was thrilled, because now she could slice through anything she wanted. The swordswoman thanked her companion. At that moment, the man wasn't sure if he was seeing things. For just a second, the blacksmith looked to him like the scariest swordsman in the world. This time, the team headed back to Melba's Great Labyrinth, but now they were ready to explore the second level. The girl chose to tell the keeper about her skills one more time. Her most helpful ability is called self-enhancement, which means she can use magic to make herself stronger. After you use this skill, it uses up all your magic power to keep fighting until the enemy right in front of you is defeated. When activated, the swordswoman starts with 7 energy units. After that, she uses up 1 unit every 10 seconds. She can store up to 10 units in total, which lets her use her ability for up to 40 seconds. It's also important to note that as long as the party's magic doesn't run out, her ability will keep working without any interruptions. Rent felt confident he could do it with his magic borrowing ability and his new auto-compensation skill, but Rinka still had her doubts. The goblin spots the newcomers and sounds his horn. Rent turns to the girl, offering her some magic, and asks her to trust him. From the very first strike to the final blow, Rinka's sword is unstoppable, cutting through everything in its path. This is the true power of Usura. The main character uses a skill called auto-compensation. When their magic drops below 9 units, another skill called Magic on Loan automatically activates. The girl started beating her enemies really fast, taking them down one after another without slowing down. As the Guardian of Magic watched Rinka's trial battle, he had no idea what she was really capable of. The swordswoman quickly avoided the flying arrows, dashed up the tree, and defeated her enemies. Her power is truly impressive. It's on another level, but there's a catch. It uses up a lot of magic really quickly. That's why a regular team never got to see how strong she could really be. Right now, she can only use 1 unit of magic every 10 seconds, which isn't very much. With time, though, she'll get better and will probably need to use even more magic. It's probably not just about her abilities or getting better. It's really about who she is as a person. Rink took down the big goblin in a flash, defeating it with just a single swing of her sword. Rent was amazed by the girl's impressive skills. She defeated all the goblins in just a few minutes. While she was unconscious, the swordswoman attacked the main character, but as she started to wake up, Rinka realized who the guy was. Since the girl wasn't used to using her skill for such a long time, she became very tired and collapsed, asking Ren to forgive her. The boy felt a bit uncomfortable because the woman with the sword was standing too close. When she noticed, she quickly stepped back and apologized. Meanwhile, Mappy watched from the side and teased them both. The guild checked the materials that Rint's squad brought back. They found 1,043 goblin magic stones, which were worth 104,300 gold in total. 18 goblin chieftain magic stones sell for 9,000 gold. If you get 18 goblin seeds by wiping out a colony, you can sell them for 36,000 gold. The guild handed out the reward, and right then, Rinka happily told the keeper that her magic power had just increased by 4 points today. The main character congratulated her, and the girl confessed that in the last 3 years, she had only been able to earn 2 units. Because of this, the swordswoman was truly thankful for the chance to rent. The man just gave her a hand, but most of the work was done by her. Rinka said she still can't believe it actually happened. But the guardian of magic witnessed it all and was truly impressed. The girl who stood up for herself was truly amazing, and she had every reason to feel proud. His words really moved her. Just then, the fairy arrived and cut their conversation short. Moby needed to tell them about the loan arranged for Mrs. Rinka today. The skill only needs to be activated once, and it lasts for 1 hour and 21 minutes, using a total of 126 units. Since one unit is used every 40 seconds, the total comes to 490. After all the calculations were done, the fairy had a total of 616 units. The swordswoman accepted this result. Rinka promised to get stronger and repay her debt. Right after that, the fairy started talking to her about the interest rate on what she owed. Watching them, Rint realized he couldn't remember the last time someone thanked him for his help. Then he recalled how, at first, his old teammates had really appreciated everything he did. The main character decided they wouldn't repeat old mistakes. This time, they were ready to face everything with strength and support from their friends. The girls snapped the guy out of his thoughts by inviting him to celebrate their new team with some tasty food. The adventurers conquered the dragon and made it through Melba's tricky labyrinth on the 8th floor of Dragon Mountain. Jen felt frustrated because the scales were so tough and hard to take off. Then Fugu's reminded him that the request was for 30 pieces. The warrior had no idea that picking up dragon scales would be even harder than fighting the dragon. He wanted the girls to help too, but Nymeria didn't want to get her hands dirty, and Comet wasn't interested in doing chores either. Roger came out of the dragon and took its liver to make gin. The warrior started telling Roger off for being careless, and Roger quickly began to say sorry. Meanwhile, some strange worms started to show up behind him. Inside the dragon, a parasite had trapped Nymeria and Comet. The girls insisted on being set free, refusing to back down. Right now, only a few people kept picking up scales, acting like nothing unusual was going on. The main character asked the girl to join him for dinner during a meteor shower. She quickly said no, feeling she wasn't worthy because she was just a low-level adventurer. Then Rinka asked how he knew those people. It turned out Rince's old squad had become pretty well known, and they had hung out and had drinks together a few times. The swordswoman wished the man a great night. When Rent got to the bar, he realized it had been ages since he last shared a drink with Roger. He was excited but also a bit anxious. Just then, a girl quickly said sorry to the bartender for being late. Rent couldn't believe Nymeria showed up in a dress, even with a mission planned for their team. The mage just smiled and said meeting him was a special occasion, so she wanted to look nice. Curious, she asked what he thought of her outfit. With a blush, Rent admitted he thought she looked beautiful. Roger playfully slapped Nymeria on the back of the head after she gave the guardian a hug. The warrior was also curious about the strange clothes and wondered when the girl managed to change. She just said that wearing them was uncomfortable, and Roger didn't get what real beauty was, since Rent actually liked the outfit. Once they were seated, the warrior mentioned he'd heard a lot of talk about the boy squad. Then, he looked at the keeper and asked him straight out why he was left out. Roger felt sorry for Rant and tried to lift his spirits by offering him a drink to help him forget his troubles. But Rant politely turned him down, saying it wasn't a good time to drink. Mary couldn't believe how awful the story was. How could someone push out a friend after 5 years together? Roger said all he ever hears now are stories about their failures. It seemed like Renta was the only thing keeping the group from falling apart. This guy can store magic, but it seems his old team forgot how much they believed in his potential. They were the fastest group to ever reach B rank, which is why Roger thought they were all a bit too full of themselves. Looking back, Brent realizes he was actually the one holding on to them. During their adventures, the keeper was happy just to share his magic. Brent, on the other hand, never really thought about finding his own way. The main character really did deserve to be kicked out because he just wasn't thinking things through at the time. Roger suddenly noticed that Rent had grown up, which really surprised him. The girl thought that their leader acted more like a kid than Rent did. Roger felt a bit offended by her remark. Nymeria shared with Rant her story about fighting the dragon. These creatures only show up on the 8th floor of the Great Labyrinth, right where the meteor shower happened. According to Roger, these dragons can be pretty troublesome at times. After that, the girl decided to tell the main character all about the story with the dragon parasites. Even though the man tried to stop her, he couldn't do it. Rent knows that Roger and Nymeria are on another level, and he'll never quite match their greatness. Still, when they share stories about their adventures, it feels like they're all just good friends hanging out together. The main character dreams of becoming an adventurer, just like the amazing meteor shower they once saw. Roger told his team they were going to complete all of level 8. As soon as he said it, the keeper understood right away and Roger nodded to confirm he was serious. The team set off to explore the huge Melba labyrinth, aiming to reach its deepest level and achieve victory. The highest achievement is getting a car, and that's something many adventurers dream about. Roger asked the girl how many levels the labyrinth had, but she didn't know for sure. He then suggested they explore it together and discover the answer themselves. Just then, Rent remembered he had something important to share, too. The guy explained that he and Rinka had formed a new team. They both had special abilities that often got them into trouble. Namori liked the team name, and Roger started imagining how the new squad would look. Now Roger and Rent see each other as rivals. As they were about to leave, Rent thanked Roger for the treat, and that made Roger think it would be great if they could team up. Numeria scolded the man for hiding the real reason they were meeting, but Roger couldn't ask the boy to be part of their group because the boy had already formed his own team. Roger once had a friend who worked as a loan shark. He didn't trust anyone and only relied on himself. He made a lot of money doing this, but many people disliked him. In the end, someone killed him. Rent had a special talent. Sometimes, if the moment was right, someone might be willing to lend more than normal, but it was easy to mess up, and Roger worried that Rent might slip up soon. Now the man feels confident that the keeper will be okay. He wanted to hear what his companion was thinking, but she was already gone. Numeria invited the main guy to keep chatting at the bar, but he was concerned about coming back late and possibly waking up Rinka. When Numeria asked if he and Rinka were together, Rent clarified that they were just friends. The man gently reassured Nameria, just like he did before. While they were in the middle of their disagreement, the keeper suddenly remembered there was something he needed to ask them both. Just as Mappy expected, she and the gentleman have only been in Melba for 3 weeks, but they already know everything about the debtors. The Central Information Bureau here is really efficient. The guild serves a tasty spit-roasted dish made from minced meat, fried in a crispy batter. Rinka absolutely loves this meal. This stew is famous among Melba's guilds. Every time the swordswoman uses her power, she gets extremely hungry and enjoys eating it until she's completely satisfied. The fairy explained that to grow strong and healthy, you have to eat plenty of good food. Right after that, Mappy told the girl she still needed to show something important to Mr. Rent. Rinka Rose quickly moved up from F2E rank, impressing the Guardian with her progress in only 4 days. Her magic power also increased to 24 units. For a long time, the swordswoman didn't like her special talent, but now she finally believes she can be a true adventurer. She feels it's all because of the main character's support. Until recently, Rent didn't think much about his own gift, but now, the fairy wanted to create a special present for Rinka. Moppy gave her a crispy treat that looked amazing. At first, the swordswoman wasn't sure about it, but once she tasted it, all her doubts vanished. The event hosted by Guy surprised Rinka, but only Rent, who hadn't been around for a while, seemed curious about the war. The Guardian asked Guy what he wanted, not really caring because they were no longer on the same path. This made the warrior feel angry. Everything started to fall apart for the group when the guy began taking their magic. Misei said it was all because of the Rent, but the main character set things straight. He explained that he hadn't stolen the magic, just like he hadn't given it away, he only loaned it. The group didn't want to stop using magic on their own, so the Guardian of Magic had to step in and make them give it up. But then the mage saw the woman with the sword and rushed over to learn more about her. Rinka said she was an adventurer who sometimes works for hire. Misei wasn't sure if she could trust what the girl said about the guy right away. The team started making fun of their old teammate, but the swordswoman spoke up to defend him. Misei didn't like the way the girl was looking at her, so she made her look away. Ren asked everyone to calm down, so Guy decided to step in and do something. Roger quickly came over and said that if they wanted to fight, they needed to take it outside. The warrior wanted to know why the man was there, but Roger didn't answer. He was too busy worrying about the food that had dropped on the floor. The man was accused of stealing magic after a boy got kicked out of the group, and someone pointed him out as the culprit. Roger repeated what the keeper had mentioned before. Then Misei got really upset because the man was doing all this without asking them first. The man looked to Rent for confirmation, and Ren agreed, but also said they were being too forceful. Roger heard what everyone had to say and agreed that high fees were an issue, so he came up with an idea to fix it. In a duel, people can settle an argument by fighting each other. The man was released so he could help as a second, or assistant. Rinka didn't know what that meant, so the keeper explained that a duel is a special fight where 2 people try to solve their disagreement with a battle. The guy was excited for this chance, because if he won, Rent would have to pay him back for all the magic he took. He agreed to all the rules of the contest, even if it meant taking on 3 opponents by himself. Right then, Roger and our main character both remembered what they talked about yesterday. The Guardian had asked the man to be his second during the duel. The enemy turned out to be Roger's former squad. Roger felt uneasy, thinking this guy planned to take them on by himself. Guy and the others will reach Melba before sunrise tomorrow. They'll notice the damage and start asking questions. Before long, someone will mention a duel. No one will listen to Guy at first, but if Roger steps in, the group will reconsider. The man was curious and asked how the main character knew the exact time they would show up. Rent didn't mention the ferry and simply said it was just a feeling. The organizer said that Roger would be one of the witnesses and mentioned that the show was going to be exciting. Miss A felt a bit uneasy seeing the large crowd watching them. Guy, on the other hand, smiled and said this was the best place to have a duel. He was excited to show everyone what they could do. The boy was surprised at how easily Roger made friends. Right then, Jin wished him good luck, and Roger felt truly thankful. Jin spent all his weekly money on rent, so there was no way he could lose. He decided to try his luck with betting once more. The organizer invited Mr. Renty and the representatives from the Sword of the Boundless Sky to share their bets for the upcoming duel. The guy spoke up for the whole team, saying that if they won, the Guardian had to stop taking their magic. Now, it was the main character's turn to step forward. If Rent wins, he'll increase the interest rate for magic ecolex. Right now, it's 8% over 10 days, but he'll bump it up to 10%. The magic power loan will be paid back every month. Starting tomorrow, he'll get another 90,000 magic power. An extra 10% interest will be added on top. Before the seller could even announce the final price, Miss A guest jumped in and wanted to double-check the details. The main character received daily payments, which were required and couldn't be missed. Tired of waiting, the warrior silenced the man, warning him that his end was near. The organizer asked the guys to take an oath. They promised to accept whatever results came from this important duel. Roger took the oath as the second person. Rinka seemed worried, probably because she had never seen anything like this before. An oath made during a duel is unbreakable. It's much more than a simple promise. If you break it, you'll face serious consequences. The girls had never met in person before, but they already knew a lot about each other. Namiria shared a story about the night before with Rint. She added some funny details to make the story more entertaining for the girl. Rinka didn't understand the joke, which made Namiria laugh even more. Rinka just had to trust the man since he was sure to win. The swordswoman nodded in agreement. Then, out of nowhere, a fairy showed up with an important message. Mr. Rint always wins. The girl was caught off guard by these words, but just then, Roger declared that the duel was about to start. The crowd gets excited as the duel is about to start. The hero faces a man in armor holding a big sword. Behind him, there are two girls, one with black hair and one with blonde hair, watching closely. A dark-haired girl and a guy are opening tiny bottles and taking a sip from each one. People often wonder why someone uses a healing potion right at the start of a duel. A white-haired girl named Elle takes a drink right after her teammates, who watch her with concern. She finishes every drop, catching her breath, then boldly says that if defeating the hero is what it takes, she's ready to face anything. The hero looks at the group and jokes that he'll wait until they've had a few drinks. The man in armor calls him out for being a bully. The hero just thinks to himself how much they still depend on magic. The boy remembers running out of magic and how they forced him to drink a recovery potion. They made him swallow it so he could get his magic back and keep giving more. He shudders at the memory, still hating how terrible it felt. The boy is so deep in thought that he doesn't notice when the enemy attacks, swinging a sword at him. Suddenly, a loud scream from the crowd snaps him back to reality. The attack hits right where the guy is standing, and there's a huge explosion. Debris flies everywhere, and among the flying objects is something that looks like a piggy bank. The force of the blast knocks back everyone watching. Worried, the girl calls out to Rent. After the attack, dust floats in the air while the pig drops to the ground. The girl, scared by what she sees at night, quietly whispers the name Rent. Meanwhile, the man who bet on the boy is approached by others who assure him he'll get all his money back, plus extra. The girl smiles slyly. The knight feels proud for knocking out the boy with just one hit. The dark-haired girl calls the boy a tough guy and tells him he was a bit too much. He grins, saying that Elle, the white-haired girl, also did a great job protecting herself. One guy looks at Roger and tells him he's really awesome, but Roger gives him a strange look and frowns, and the knight feels a bit weird, like there's a problem with the pig. Suddenly, a blazing fireball lights up the night sky. The girl with dark hair yells for him to look behind. Quickly, she creates a magical shield to keep them safe. Both of them try to figure out where this surprise attack came from. The girl in the crowd remarks that with Roger around, nobody would have the guts to interrupt the duel. As she and her friend turn to look, they spot a shadowy figure emerging through the swirling dust. They saw that Ren was attacking, so the girl sent a swirling tornado of fire right at him. The hero quickly dodges, stepping out of the smoke with a small dagger ready. He manages to defeat the sorceress and she collapses to the ground. In the darkness, someone shouts her name, calling out Miss A. Rent grabs the pig. The guy shouts at Elle to help the sorceress stand up, but there's no time. Suddenly, he launches 3 fireballs at the girl with white hair. The crowd is stunned to see Rent using 3 powerful spells at the same time. The same girl from before encourages everyone to pay close attention to the hero. Guy, still surprised, wonders aloud how Rent managed to do it. Clenching his jaw, Guy realizes he's not as fit as he used to be. The knight is surprised that Rent was not hurt at all after his attack. The boy walks toward them, holding a pig in one hand and a dagger in the other. A girl in the crowd, wearing a fairy on her head, comments on how impressive his Rent skills are and wonders if his unlimited magic storage helped. The fairy answers that it was all thanks to his hard work. She remembers sitting with her boyfriend at night, looking through the items they could buy. They felt happy because they had finally saved enough money. Now, Rent decides what thing he needs to get. He unlocks the creditor's protection skill, which is now always active. The guy believes that having this skill means he will definitely win any duel. He knows it took him a long time to learn, but he's confident it will help him a lot in the future. Rent says that if the enemy attacks, he can use this skill to protect himself. While fighting, he realizes that the effect can block attacks from the debtor, but only up to a certain amount of damage. He also believes that the amount of damage prevented matches how much the debtor pays. The guy then attacks with a powerful vacuum strike. The sword touches the boy but doesn't hurt him. Rent looks calmly at the blade by his shoulder and points out that it's made of mithril, but it's breaking apart. He then jokingly asks the knight if he's really looking after his weapon. The fairy claims the attackers owe them millions, so they can't even afford to pay the rent. Meanwhile, one guy says their main focus now should be getting their strength back, so there isn't enough money left for repair supplies. With a quick flick of his wrist, the boy snaps the knight's sword in half. Someone in the crowd suddenly sees the blade break and soar right at them. Just in time, a mysterious knight with long white hair and a covered face catches the flying piece. He looks at the item and wonders if someone might want to buy it. The man clutches the broken remains of his weapon, his hands shaking. He looks around at his injured friends and lets out a furious, anguished yell. He charges forward again, yelling that he refuses to lose to Rent, and suddenly there's another blast. The guy blocks the attack and his opponent falls to the ground. The crowd cheers, excited that they have a winner, and some people start saying how awesome Rent is. The girl who was cheering for him looks shocked and amazed. A guy lies on his back, groaning in pain, as he looks up and sees the hero's scary face coming closer, staring down at him. Rent tells him to stop using magic. The knight tries to explain, mumbling that he's already used up all his power. The hero then kicks him right in the face. The girl with the fairy and her companion watch everything very closely. Rent silences Guy, pointing a dagger at him and saying, "That's just how life is." He points the weapon at the knight's face and boasts that he now owns 3 souls. Then he wonders out loud how much they might be worth, and if selling them could clear his debts. Rent warns him that if this happens, Guy's soul will be lost forever, trapped in endless darkness. Then, with a chilling smile, Guy calmly says that it's no longer his concern. The terrified knight desperately tries to stop him. The guy stares at him, confused, and asks who he is. Rent's face twists into a weird grin as he lets out a small laugh. In the vision, Rent drops another coin into the piggy bank and gives it a shake next to his face. The pig tells him he has saved a good amount, then asks if that's enough. The hero shakes his head and says he wants to save even more. He tells the pig that his old teammates are splitting the money and making sure they get it all. He lunges at the bags of coins, wild-eyed and shouting that everything is his and demanding they hand it all over. Someone tries to call him, but he's too busy grabbing the cash and fending off the people around him. A girl with a ponytail, cheering him on, snaps him out of his trance. She runs up behind him and hugs him tightly, shouting his name with excitement. The boy suddenly notices he's on a battlefield, with Rinka hugging him tightly. She doesn't let go and softly tells him to relax because he's already won. Rent stands perfectly still as he starts to understand what just happened. He glances at his defeated rivals spread out on the ground. Roger steps up, declaring the fight finished and names Rent as the winner. The young man stands there, looking around, clearly surprised. Roger walks up to the boy and says it was impressive. He glances at the defeated enemy and comments on how harsh the fight was, admitting he expected the hero to be more cautious. A girl wearing a white dress with long black hair tells Rent that what happened gave her goosebumps. Rent looks confused and says he can't remember anything. Just then, some other friends walk over and tell him it was awesome. People say he was like a real demon, and during the duel, he shot a dozen fireballs right at them. The guy looks surprised and asks, "Did I really do that?" Roger Ashur passionately explains that the enemies are still around, but the guild representatives will handle the situation and make sure everything is under control. The dark-haired girl says the guy could have stopped the fight sooner since Rinka was already crying. Roger then reminds him about what he dislikes the most. Seeing how the losers are treated, the man can't stand people who hurt others they've already betrayed, and he says they truly deserve any punishment they get. The L-Ace explained to Rent that he lost his memory because he got so upset he couldn't control himself. The boy looks at them, frowning. Rent remembers the tough times he went through with his old teammates and realizes that maybe this is exactly what happened. Just then, the same short-haired girl who had helped him before suddenly comes up behind him and attacks. The guy freezes in fear. He realizes that she is Comet. The girl asks him to show her how to make fireballs like his. The guy says it's only possible because of his special power. She yells back that nothing is impossible for her. Roger helps the girl down from the hero's back and tells her to relax since he already has a lot to deal with. Then, they focus on their recovering rivals, just as a woman carrying a bucket comes closer. The injured people try to get up, but someone pours liquid from a bucket on them. One man shouts that it burns. The woman tells him it's medicine for wounds, but it's not pure and has lots of things mixed in. He grumbles that hurt people should be treated gently. The woman says with annoyance that he's really difficult to deal with, which is why they try to cut costs around him. The girls and the guy react with obvious satisfaction. Just then, the landlord approaches. They look at the man with the piggy bank and step back, nervous. He smiles confidently and declares himself the winner. The guy says he's increasing the rate by 10%, just like the agreement says. The opponents start to protest, saying they won't pay more than what they already spent. Suddenly, a jolt of energy hits them, making them gasp and struggle in pain. Observers claim that the oath taken before a duel must never be broken, or else people could get seriously hurt. Guy looks at Rent with a heavy heart and says he gets it. A man keeps insisting he finally understands it all. Rent holds the piggy bank in his hands and casts a spell to make the contract last longer. Suddenly, the back of his opponent's neck starts to glow. A mark shows up on his neck. The man reminds him that the 7th month is almost here, so he can get back the 90,000 he lent, but he points out that this won't cover everything. Rent figures out they only have 9 days left to pay back 153,139 units, including interest. The hero glances at the exhausted group and explains that even if all three use the bracelets to recover their magic, they'll still be short by around 38,000. Rint turns his back to them and suggests they take some potions to help fill the gap. Elle says they're almost out of money. Guy gets even more upset. As he leaves, Rent says confidently that they'll need to drink around 77 bottles. Knight yells that potions aren't just lying around for free. Misei asks what happens if they don't make it. Rent Coolwai says that if that happens, it's all over for them. He also says he's not here to give them advice, and as debtors, they can't really do anything to hurt him, the lender. The man proudly says it's all because of his own talent. Gaia clenches her teeth, now realizing why the hero was never afraid of his attacks. Rent tells everyone that the heroes have just 10 days to pay him back, and they need to do whatever it takes. The heroes stay silent. The rivals glare at him with tense faces, making it clear the fight isn't over yet. The hero and his friends are celebrating their win at a lively tavern, with mugs clinking all around. A man who placed a bet on the hero thanks him for making him rich. The hero smiles, but jokingly wonders aloud what would have happened if he hadn't won. Just then, a group called the Two-Headed Silver Wolf walks up to the guy to congratulate him. Their leaders are a white-haired man and a girl in armor. The girl steps forward and says hello to the hero. The man admits he didn't realize they were in Melba. They explain that they're there for an important mission. The woman adds that they traveled in the same carriage as his duel opponents. The boy says they turned it down, just like the rumors said. The girl adds that the group is pretty rude. They both agree they've never seen B-class adventurers handle orcs so poorly. Two girls in the group ask if he won and say they're hoping he does. Meanwhile, the man jokes that he's the real star tonight and demands a victory speech. The guy feels a bit embarrassed by all the attention. He starts sharing how he felt hopeless after getting kicked out of his last group, but then he met true friends who stood by him. Thanks to them, he got a second chance and began his journey as an adventurer. Everyone listens closely to his story. The man bows and shyly says he hopes everyone will support and understand them. There's a brief pause, then lots of voices start encouraging him. They tell him not to fear his rivals and share their hope that everyone can be friends. Roger tells the girl with black hair that the guy is pretty funny. She laughs and says that sounds just like him. Rinka and the hero share a quick look, and the girl gives a warm, gentle smile. Rent and Rinka are sitting apart at the table. She thanks him for all he's done. The fairy smiles and says she always believed he would succeed. The fairy guesses that the enemy must be feeling pretty discouraged after losing like that. The boy hopes she's right. Rinka tells the boy he did an amazing job, but admits she was a bit frightened. Rent says he's sorry. She remembers when he claimed he forgot everything. He jokes that people said he was so mad, he actually lost his mind. For a moment, Rent gets serious and questions if this is really true. He recalls feeling something besides anger. He remembers the piggy bank. The man describes it as if he became a completely different person, filled with anger and bad intentions. The girl looks really surprised by this idea, and the fairy just gives a gentle smile. It's starting to get dark outside. Rinka swings her sword and defeats the vicious monsters. Rent rushes over and compliments her skills. Rinka looks back at him and says there are more enemies, and she's even stronger now. Right then the girl gets shot, her eyes open wide in shock. A terrifying creature, shaped like a human skeleton with 4 arms, strikes. As the girl collapses, the guy desperately calls out her name. The boy sits on his bed at night, thinking about everything that happened. The fairy asks him what's wrong. He says he's just remembering things. She thinks it happened because of anger. Rint also remembers how Rinka wiped out a group of goblins and kept fighting even when she lost control. The guy thinks their special powers could be really dangerous. The fairy tells him not to worry, because it all depends on how they use them, and reminds him that she's there to help. The girl also points out that he looks scared. He tries to hide his fear. They have a brief argument, but suddenly they both go quiet when they hear someone knocking at the door. The man opens the door and sees Rinka standing there, dressed in a sleek black suit. She quickly says sorry for showing up so late. They sit on his bed, and she opens up about having scary dreams every night. The girl says that because of him, she feels like she's becoming a better person every day. Rinka shivers as she remembers the day the skeleton snapped her sword. She just can't stop replaying that scene in her mind. The guy answers that he faced his fears and overcame them during the duel. He also realized from how his old friends acted that they have no interest in bringing magic back. Rent says that everything will be finished in just 10 days, so now it's the perfect moment to help Rinka face her fears. He's confident the girl will beat the skeleton. The day arrives and they head out into the city. Rinka admires the flower beds and comments on how beautiful they look. Catgirl stands nearby and explains that Melba is a city where people from many countries come together, and you can find flower seeds of every kind. The girl notices some flowers and realizes they are Gremolata and Melba's morning glory. Rinka notices that one type of flower opens in the morning and another blooms in the evening, so she suggests splitting the flower beds based on when each flower blooms. The girl, impressed, happily asks Rinka how she figured it out and why she knows so much about flowers. Just then, the main character shows up wearing a new outfit and calls out to Rinka, saying sorry for being late. He's got a belt over his shoulder with a piggy bank hanging from it. He asks the girl if she needs new armor. She says she's already tried lots of options, but what she's wearing now feels the best. The hero gets it. Suddenly, a little girl runs over and asks if they're searching for armor. The heroes nod, a bit unsure. Then, the girl's eyes spot the katana hanging at Rinka's side. The girl starts to wonder if she might really be a samurai, and taking her by the hand, quickly pulls her aside, saying they need to get to their shop. The child excitedly pulls Rinka along, saying they have everything she could ever want. The catgirl laughs, noticing how energetic Susu still is. They walk into the Yagu store, looking around in amazement at all the unusual items. The hero admits he's never seen anything like this before. The girl smiles and greets them with joy. The child starts to say that this store sells items from the Far East, but before she can finish, the hero looking at the vase completes her sentence. Rinka puts on a samurai helmet. The girl asks her how she feels wearing it. The child points out that the helmet once belonged to the shogun, the most important samurai. The girl tries it on, but it's too heavy for her. She wobbles as she struggles to balance and accidentally bumps the helmet into the tanuki statue. The girl stares at the broken item in disbelief, while Rinka quickly apologizes over and over. Susu reassures everyone that it's not a big deal since they have a spare, but the guy still looks doubtful. The girl shows off a special container, claiming it can make enemies lose their fighting spirit if used in battle. She also presents dumplings that, once eaten, can completely subdue opponents. The strange items leave the guy feeling both amazed and a bit scared. He hesitantly says they should leave, but Susu quickly holds onto his waist, not letting him go. The girl insists they can't leave unless they buy something. She offers to rent him a mask, promising it will make him the best dancer at the party. The guy yells at Rinka to get out. The girl stands by a stunning cape displayed on the wall, gazing at it in awe. Rent calls out to her once more. She notices the pretty flower designs, and someone nearby tells her it's called a kimono. A man steps out from the back and points out that this is a habut, hand-painted with blood. He explains that the fabric is quite thin, but if you add a bit of magic, it turns into strong armor. The girl stares at it, clearly impressed. The man welcomes the heroes and mentions it's been a while since they've had any customers. The child happily says she brought these ones. He scolds her gently for using force again, but she argues that at least she's getting things done. Then the seller focuses his attention on Rinka. He spots the girl's katana and wonders if she's a samurai. Rinka says no. Curious, the guy then asks her what a samurai actually is. The man says these are skilled warriors from the Far East who use katanas to defeat their enemies in hand-to-hand combat. He explains that their main outfit is the kimono, and he was so taken by how beautiful it looked that he decided to bring one here. Rinka suggests that maybe their fighting styles are alike. Rent excitedly asks the girl if this gear will work with hers. She says yes and wants to know the price. The man calmly says the price is about 2.5 million. The girl is stunned when she hears such a big number. Susu yells that this is exactly why he never buys from them. The man says he'd drop the price if it wasn't so rare. Rinka adds that they just can't afford it. Rent wonders if the armor is really that valuable. The man confidently says it's made from the finest material available and promises that it's top quality. The man drops a huge bag of cash on the counter and says, "I'll buy it." The woman gasps and shouts his name, completely surprised. The hero insisted that Rinka should wear the best armor, saying it was definitely worth it. When Rinka tried to protest, he just smiled and said they could always make more money in the dungeon. He also mentioned how he noticed her admiring the kimono earlier. He confidently told her that he fell in love with her the very first time he saw her. Rinka blushed and struggled to find the right words to say. The child happily announces that their favorite customer is getting a free mask as a special gift. The man then asks Rinka to come with him, and together they head further into the shop. They arrive in a backyard, where the girl gets a wooden sword. The man mentions it's been ages since he got a request like this, and suggests they have a friendly sparring match. He says this will help him see how she moves, so he can tailor the kimono just for her. Rent asks the girl if her dad is strong. She says yes, and adds that at least he enjoys it. The guy wonders if things will go well, since the girl's only experience has been fighting monsters. He thinks that battling a real person could inspire Rinka, so he gets ready to fight. The battle starts now. They're all set, and the man announces it's time to begin. Rent and Susu keep an eye on tensely. Suddenly, the man steps forward and moves quickly toward Rinka. He aims for her shoulder, but she quickly moves out of the way. She strikes back, but the man quickly blocks her move. The boy and the child watch the fight closely, fascinated by every move. They keep taking turns attacking each other. Rent mentions that the girl's father is pretty skilled. She also says that Rinka is a strong fighter too. After taking another hit, the man encourages the girl to stop holding back and to show what she's really capable of. She keeps coming at him, throwing one attack after another. The man can only defend himself, blocking her strikes as best as he can. The man believes she is quick, but he hasn't seen her real skills yet. He lifts his sword, ready to find out. The seller throws a strong punch, but the girl quickly blocks it with skill. She starts shaking all over and suddenly realizes things are getting intense. The change in her eyes and attitude is clear, and the man can sense it right away. She starts attacking with more force and accuracy. Rent quickly notices something is wrong and lets out a worried curse. The girl looks confused, not sure what's going on. Rinka charges at the man with all her strength, but instead of being scared, he just smiles at her. The man quickly blocks her attack and with a strong swing, knocks the sword right out of her hands. Her katana whips through the air above her and clatters to the ground. She stares at her opponent, clearly surprised. The boy and Susu watch in surprise, not sure what's going on. Rinka is also confused about what just happened. The seller says sorry to her for acting rude. Catching his breath, the man says that if things had gone on any longer, one of them wouldn't have made it out alive. Rinka says sorry, but the shopkeeper smiles and tells her it's all right because it was an impressive fight. He then asks Rinka what her special skill is. She answers that it's called the Way of Asura. The man realizes he knows this style. It's named after a powerful god. The man says his name is Yaju Lindo and mentions he's from the 21st generation of his family. He then asks her for her name, and she politely tells him. The salesman tells her that he has the perfect product in mind for her after considering everything. She thanks him, and together they head back inside the house. They look at all the different fabrics. The man asks which patterns she likes, and she happily says she loves floral designs. She asks if he has any floral designs, but wants something that doesn't look too girly or fragile. He thinks for a moment, then shows her a fabric with bold red flowers and explains that, in the language of flowers, these symbolize courage. While measuring the girl, Suzus comments on her strength, saying her father hasn't worked this hard in ages. The girl notices the man seems skilled, like a fencing master, and asks if he's a sword expert. Suzus answers that sword fighting is just his hobby. She explains that when the man was young, he started learning how to make kimonos. He trained in the same dojo as the warriors who wore his creations, and that's how he became so skilled. Susan notices that his special skill is fire magic, and he mentions that it's handy for starting fires. The girl pays close attention. The child adds that she still has 5 years to go before her coming-of-age ceremony. Susu is curious about her present and hopes it will be something related to business or trade. The guy and Rinka walk together on a crowded city street. Rant tells her that everything will be ready tomorrow. The girl is excited and looks forward to it, while the hero turns to face her. He wonders if she likes flowers, since she seemed excited about them while picking out fabrics and often talks to others about flower gardens. With a dreamy smile, she confesses that, as a child, she dreamed of being a florist. He looks at her in surprise. The girl shares that there was a lovely flower shop back in her hometown, and the flowers there always made her feel happy. She started to think that she could bring the same joy to others by creating beautiful flower arrangements for her own customers. She feels sad because she had to let go of her dream when she went through her coming-of-age ceremony. Rinka knows she doesn't always get the gifts she wishes for, but she believes she could still chase her dreams if only that mysterious voice would stop holding her back. She feels a strong voice inside her telling her she has to fight and defeat the enemy. Even when she tries to ignore it, the voice doesn't go away and gives her a headache. The man looks at the woman with sadness in his eyes. She realizes that her special gift has given her both happiness and sorrow. She said she picked this up from renting. The girl admits she's scared to face her old enemy, but she understands it's something she has to do, and this time she won't back down. She says with confidence that this is her true path and she's ready to follow it. Rent smiles, showing he believes in her too. The man insists he's her real creditor and says he'll keep chasing her everywhere until she pays him back. Right now, somewhere in a tavern, a big sack of money suddenly drops in front of 2 men. Gaius is the one who hires the assassins. He pays them 100,000 gold coins right away and promises a huge reward of 10 million more later. One of the assassins then asks who their target is. Misei stands in the dark and quietly calls out Rent's name, teasing him by saying he looks like a fool carrying around a beat-up piggy bank on his belt. The man hears the name and remembers, wasn't this the guy who just took down 3 B-class adventurers? He asks him to help jog his memory about what happened. He's told that these guys are the ones who lost to Unlimited Sky. Guy gets upset, but the men just laugh and joke that everyone knows them, but only because of their bad reputation. The men admit their job is messy, but they're not foolish enough to go against the meteor shower. They also mention that their whole team supports him. Mila angrily calls them weak and says she'll just get help from someone else, grabbing the bag. But one of the men blocks her, saying the bag is their fee since she turned them down. The other man threatens to tell everyone what she wanted. He grabs the bag and announces to the whole tavern that the sword of the boundless sky is calling for revenge, offering a reward of 100,000 gold. Instantly, everyone in the room turns to stare at them. The visitors laugh at them, saying that getting revenge for the duel is just pointless and they should just move on. Guy is so angry that he's shaking, and Misei tells him to walk away. They walk into the room, and Guy, clearly upset, kicks a chair and angrily snaps at the mercenaries. Elle points out that they didn't do what was asked but still took the payment. The knight adds that in the old days, these mercenaries would have been punished. Misei responds that things are different now, and that's no longer possible. Alex says they need to be smart with their money because it's all they have left. She worries they can't even afford a place to stay. Guy suggests they should work in the dungeon to earn more. Misei points out they've sold almost everything they own, and Guy notices he's still wearing his bracelet. He suggests they sell the jewel. The black-haired girl quickly grabs hers and says no, explaining that the jewel holds enough magic power to get them 3,000 units. The guy wonders if she really cares that much about it. He glances at the items with a smile and says they could really use some money right now. Selling something this rare would let them buy hundreds of potions. The expert in the shop checks them out and says they're worth 6,000 gold coins. Misei and Guy get into an argument with the man about how much the item costs, but he just laughs and says it's only a cheap bracelet. Elle, looking worn out, complains she's hungry. There are only 8 days left before the rent is due.